Good morning and thank you for watching a special digital edition of 23 ABC. I'm Brenna Rose. Kern County Sheriff's Deputy Phillip Campas, killed in the line of duty in Wasco July 25th, will be laid to rest today. The 5-year KCSO veteran was part of a SWAT team responding to a shooting that ultimately led to him being shot and killed. This morning, family, friends, colleagues, and the community gathering at Mechanics Bank Arena to pay their respects to Deputy Campas. 23 ABC has team coverage of the funeral service, which is set to start at 11 a.m. Both Mike Hart and Brianna Willis are live outside of Mechanics Bank Arena, where they will be speaking with some of the attendees. We'll get to them soon, but first, we're looking back at the life of Phillip Jesse Campas, born in 1986 to Jesse and Christine Campas. He grew up here in Bakersfield, played football for East Bakersfield High School, and joined the Kern County Sheriff's Office in 2016. Deputy Campas served the department for 5 years before his life was tragically cut short.
He was just a star in our organization that when you talk about police officers that run toward gunfire, that's him.
Deputy Phillip Campas proudly served his country and the county he grew up in, joining the Kern County Sheriff's Office in February of 2016 after serving as a United States Marine.
Deputy Campas served as a sergeant in Afghanistan in 2008, Operation Enduring Freedom. Deputy Campas served the Sheriff's Office in our community as a patrol deputy, a SWAT team member, an honor guard member, and recruit training officer.
His impact in just 5 short years, profound.
This Deputy Campas, he touched everybody in our organization. 5 years, everybody knew who he was. He was on the honor guard. He was an academy instructor. He probably touched this organization as much as anyone that I've ever seen in such a short period of time.
He was a husband, son, brother, and father to 3 young children.
He's got a heart of gold. He's softy inside, but a hard and a strong guy on the outside appearance, and he'd do anything for anybody, and he did, and it showed it on his last day.
Deputy Phillip Campas was 35 years old. As mentioned, the funeral is scheduled to start at 11 this morning, and we will be airing the entire service on 23 ABC instead of our regularly scheduled 11 a.m. newscast. The Kern County Sheriff's Office is slated to release a list of who will be speaking. At this point, though, we don't know many details about how things will play out. We have been told that the service will last about an hour and a half or so. We are anticipating to hear from at least one representative of KCSO. Immediately following the public memorial service, a procession will take place, escorting Deputy Campas to the National Cemetery. That's where a private family burial will be held. It is not open to the public. KCSO is asking for your cooperation to make sure the procession goes smoothly. So here's a look at the route that it will be taking. It will head east on Truxton Avenue toward Q Street, continuing east on Truxton Avenue. Then the procession will head south onto Union Avenue and merge onto Highway 58 east towards Mojave, and then exit onto the 223 west towards Arvin. Again, the service at the National Cemetery is private and only for family. Let's send things over now to Brianna Willis, who is live outside of Mechanics Bank Arena with a member of the Sheriff's Mounted Posse. Brianna?
Good morning, Brenna. Yes, we've seen a lot of different law enforcement agencies come out, and right now I'm joined by Captain Darren Hobson from the Kern County Sheriff's Mounted Posse. Thank you for joining us today.
Good morning. Thank you for having us.
Tell me, why did you guys come out here today?
We're here to support the request of the family. Officer Campas was in the process of becoming a member of the Kern County Sheriff's Mounted Posse, and his family requested our presence today.
And tell me, is this the first funeral for a fallen deputy that you guys have been out to?
This is the first one we've participated in a number of years.
Yeah. And what did you guys kind of do today to honor his legacy?
Well, we've got as many members as we could get rounded up today who could be here. We've got horses, riderless horses, boots back in the saddle, and the Star Spangled, the American flag, and the thin blue line flag to show our support.
Yeah. And tell me a little bit about your badge. I know that's something else that you guys did, correct, to honor him?
Well, the badges have the band across them to show support for a fallen officer.
And what does this kind of do to your heart to be out in the community to honor, you know, someone else who is a fallen officer?
Well, it's a privilege to support the Kern County Sheriff's Mounted Posse is a nonprofit, and that's our mission, is to support the community. So this falls right in line with that, and it is a privilege to be here.
And you said that he was in the process of becoming, you know, part of your organization, and you know, what does that mean to you?
Oh, it would have been a tremendous honor to have him as a member of our group. We do a lot of things for the community and to support law enforcement. So.
And is there anything else you want to share, any message to the community about today?
You know, we're just really glad to be here, and we wanted to show our support, and I know there's a huge turnout, and I know Kern County especially supports our officers.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. Enjoy the service. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We'll send it back to you guys in the studio.
Brianna, thank you. Turning now to the ongoing investigation into the death of Deputy Phillip Campas. Here's what we do know. KCSO received calls on the afternoon of July 25th of a reported gunman inside a house. Now, as deputies approached the home, they heard gunfire. Deputies took cover and called for backup. When SWAT team members arrived on scene, they approached the home. Now, officials say they were attempting to rescue people inside who were believed to be alive. As they neared the home, officials say that the suspect fired again, hitting Deputy Campas and Deputy Disander Guerrero. Both were rushed to the hospital where Campas was pronounced dead. Guerrero was treated and released. 3 people inside the home also lost their lives that day. The gunman was shot and killed. A very emotional scene playing out at the hospital. Numerous members of law enforcement and the community gathering outside of Kern Medical when Deputy Campas's body was transported to the coroner's office. Now you can see the raw emotion is written all over the faces of fellow deputies and the 35-year-old's family who followed the coroner's vehicle as it drove off. And another solemn scene 2 days later when the body of Deputy Campas was brought to Green Lawn Cemetery. On that day, July 27th, dispatchers paid tribute.
As a sign of respect for the service and sacrifice of Deputy Phillip Campas, who tragically lost his life in the line of duty on July 25th, 2021, flags are to be flown at half-staff until further notice. ECC clear, 1417.
Deputies escorting Campas from the Kern County Coroner's Office to the cemetery. Members of the community and nurses in the middle of their shifts gathering outside of Kern Medical to watch them depart. The lead portion of the procession included the deputy's family, the honor guard, and members of the SWAT team. There was also an air unit overhead. Now let's send things over to Mike Hart, who is outside of Mechanics Bank Arena with Pastor Angelo Fraser, who was taking part in that procession. Hi, Mike.
How are you, Brenna? Yes, we're live out in front of Mechanics Bank Arena, where we are just over an hour away from the start of these services. And I got to tell you, the one word I use out here right now to describe what's happening here is overwhelming. There are police units from all over the state, all over the country, that are out here this morning, parked 3 deep, all the way down Truxton Avenue, as they've been making their way into Mechanics Bank Arena for the start of services at about 11 a.m. And someone who has been around all of this since it began is Pastor Angelo Fraser. Pastor, thank you for being here this morning. Appreciate it. Good seeing you. Yeah. First of all, take us back to that moment on July 25th when you first got word that 2 Kern County Sheriff's deputies were injured in that SWAT team standoff.
Well, my heart, I just sank. I just sank, and I began to cry. And I just got in my car. We got a call from the BPD chaplain to assist. Got in my car and was driving, didn't know where to go. Didn't know where to go to Wasco or to KMC. And I said, well, let me KMC. And I wound up at KMC, and it was amazing. It was a very just dreadful day. You know, not only for the officer, but for those that lost their lives too. You know, I've been volunteering for over 27 years. I've seen these things, but today, like you mentioned, this is overwhelming, the community support, and I'm convinced we don't need to defund the police, we need to refund them.
When you talk about going to Kern Medical on that day, are cameras outside showing as Deputy Campas's body was being brought out and people, but you were actually inside. Can you share a little bit about what was going on then before what we saw and showed everyone?
We were in the room with his wife, and she was hugging him, and everyone standing around, and they did the last rites, and they brought the flag in and put it on, and it was just, we were there for a good long time, just weeping and crying. And then they asked us to step out into the hallway, and Kern Medical, was stuff going on. They got people in the hallway, all kinds of things. We go back out into the noise and everything. We're standing there, and when they opened that door and brought that casket, brought that stretcher with a flag on it, right when it hit the hallway, everything in that thing stopped. Doctors, nurses, it was like the moment just froze. A deep reverence, and it was like, this isn't supposed to happen. These are the guys that run to bullets. These are the guys that protect the good guys and the bad guys.
After all of this, he gave a press conference. He talked about some of these same things that you're mentioning. But the thing that is never a surprise, it seems, is that the outreach of support, not just locally, and as looking around, you see every single agency from Kern County that has a representative here today. But did anyone reach out to you? Were people reaching out? Did you get contacted by anyone wondering how they could help?
Absolutely. I got phones just buzzing. People, this cut across everything, everybody, and when things like this happen, Mike, no one disputes prayer. We were out there at Kern Medical praying with Sheriff Youngblood, praying with anybody, praying with the officers, the highway patrol, walking up to people, giving them a hug. Everyone's crying, just praying, because God has the answer for this.
And I can hear the emotion in your voice right now, but also since that day, there's also been the memorial at the Liberty Bell. There was a candlelight vigil that was being held. And could you see sort of a cross-section of the community coming out for this? It wasn't just law enforcement.
No, it was actually the community coming out. It cut across everything. We had people that wouldn't normally come out for anything, came out in support of law enforcement. Sheriff Spark came out. He's struggling with a lot of physical things. He took everything he had to come out. He said, we need to stand for law enforcement. Strong law enforcement means safe community. And so, I saw both vigils downtown and also with the Sheriff Department, people from all over saying, no, we need to support our law enforcement. And we do.
What did it mean to you just watching the number of agencies and deputies, officers, et cetera, walking in?
Overwhelming. Overwhelming. I cannot believe, but the community is saying resoundingly, we stand with law enforcement. We stand with the families that have lost so much today. We stand for the future, and we can set a green light of hope for this country, and I think we can do it here in Kern County.
Pastor Angelo, Fraser, thank you for your time this morning. We appreciate it. We'll allow you to head back into Mechanics Bank Arena. Thank you again. That's Pastor Angelo Fraser. We're going to be talking. He did mention a moment ago Carl Sparks. We are hoping to get former Sheriff Carl Sparks and to get some of his thoughts. He was at that prayer vigil at the Liberty Bell earlier this week, so we're hoping to bring him in just a little bit and get his comments. We're also going to be talking with former Sheriff Mac Wimbish, who was the sheriff of Kern County from 2004 to 2006, where 2 deputies were lost during his time. We're going to hear his thoughts on everything that's been happening out here as well. But it is truly an amazing moment. And we can't, you know what, Tarek, let's go ahead and see if we can just pan over just a little bit. I know there's not much activity going in the plaza right now, but if you look down onto Truxton, you can see right now where the units are parked 3 across right now. Now you're looking west from the intersection of N Street and Truxton Avenue, and that's just part of the line. That line extends to the east from this intersection all the way down past the Bakersfield Marriott downtown. There are agencies and cars from all over, and we'll get more into that in just a little bit. But some of the agencies that are here include, I saw the Upland PD is here, San Bruno is here, Ventura County Sheriffs. There are representatives from the Bureau of Land Management, the U.S. Forest Service, several BLM officers that I spoke to today in their honor guard outfits, because they said that Deputy Phillip Campas came out and assisted them on a few things. So we're starting to learn just how wide, how broad of a touch that he had on so many agencies, not just the Kern County Sheriff's Department, but throughout Kern County and Bakersfield. So we will be back with more on that and talk about some of the other representatives who are here today. We are set to talk with, as I mentioned, Sheriff Mac Wimbish, Sheriff Carl Sparks. We'll get some of their thoughts coming up in just a bit. Reporting live out in front of Mechanics Bank Arena, I'm Mike Hart. Let's send it back to the studio.
Mike, thank you. And here's a live look from inside Mechanics Bank Arena. People are starting to show up for the service for Deputy Phillip Campas, who was killed in the line of duty on July 25th. Now, 23 ABC will bring you full coverage of that service. It starts at 11 on air and as well on our social media and our streaming platforms. So many people are mourning the death of Deputy Campas. He grew up here and has so many ties to our community. And it's important to remember that loss and grief can also greatly impact law enforcement officers. Here's 23 ABC's Veronica Morley with more on how law enforcement agencies cope when they lose one of their own.
In the world of law enforcement critical incidents, trauma becomes familiar, but when it comes to the death of a comrade, the grief can be overwhelming.
Our hearts are broken because of a loss of a star in our organization.
That's the unfortunate part. You can never really prepare for something as tragic.
The law enforcement community in Kern County mourning the death of KCSO Deputy Phillip Campas.
You don't have to be intimately involved to really have a serious impact on your mental health, and we're experiencing that.
The Kern County Sheriff's Office saying after the incident, 23 deputies were placed on administrative leave as they cope with the tragedy.
We do have policies and protocols in place that help manage the situation in the most fluid way possible. And they dictate, how the initial response is to the line of duty death, because the calls for service, they don't stop coming. And so those people that were directly affected by the line of duty death, though they may be on administrative leave, others have to fill their positions. And oftentimes, those come from other resources such as, neighboring law enforcement agencies.
The Bakersfield Police Department is stepped up, handling some of our calls, or most of our calls. I've received texts and phone calls from probably 25 sheriffs throughout the state of California offering their help.
A report from the International Journal of Emergency Mental Health outlining the most common reaction for law enforcement agencies following a line of duty death are shock and disbelief. These initial reactions, if not properly monitored, can escalate to self-destructive behaviors, anger, and survivor's guilt.
Mental health preparedness, organizations are doing a very good job at making sure that officers are prepared beforehand and then after a situation occurs. So immediately they'll bring in, mental health professionals for any officers or other personnel that may be having issues with what happened and give them an outlet with which to speak.
And that report from 23 ABC's Veronica Morley. Now we are continuing that conversation about dealing with grief in the wake of a death in the line of duty. And joining us this morning is former Bakersfield Police Sergeant Gary Carrasco. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Now, we know that 23 deputies went on leave following this incident. Can you speak to the impact a loss like this has on the department?
Well, it's a very, somber day as Deputy Campas is laid to rest. And after the initial shock of the event wears off, it's a day like today that kind of brings back all the memories of the event, but also serves as a reminder as just how dangerous this job is. It also serves as a reminder the contributions that Deputy Campas and other officers that lost their lives in the line of duty made for their community.
And, so often these days, people are afraid to ask for help when they need it. There is, or some may feel that there is a stigma that could be associated with asking for help. What would you say to those people who, are struggling to deal with this tragic loss?
There are many outlets in which people can ask for help and still remain anonymous. Departments need to know how their personnel are dealing with these tragic events so that they can not only take care of their personnel, but take preventative measures for future events that may occur.
And what are the next steps? Obviously, I know that you can't speak to any specifics, but what are the next steps when a death like this occurs from a policing standpoint? What are the next steps moving forward?
Well, in this case, we know the how in how Deputy Campas died. We need to understand the why now. We need to know if there was a breakdown somewhere in the criminal justice system that allowed this individual to be out of custody, that allowed this individual to come into possession of such a dangerous and deadly weapon. And if there is, we need to know what measures we can take in the future to prevent tragedies like this from occurring again.
A lot of folks today are going to be paying their respects. People that did not know Deputy Campas. What type of message, or what type of, I guess, what type of message do you think that this sends to the family, and as they're obviously dealing with this tragic loss?
And hearing the sheriff speak about Deputy Campas and his contributions to the organization and the community, it's very clear that he was, in the sheriff's words, a star in their organization, and definitely had a huge impact on not only those he worked around, but those that he worked, for in the community. And, it's one thing I remember in the line of duty desk at BPD during these processions was the streets being lined with community members saluting the officers as they went by. These are people that didn't know the officers personally, but cared enough to come out and show their respects. And that just shows how tight-knit our community is and how much our community loves and respects their law enforcement.
And I'm not sure if you knew him personally. Obviously, this loss is being felt throughout the community, but how are you feeling today? What type of sentiments are you, I guess, going through?
Personally, my thoughts and prayers are with his family, his law enforcement family, and the country as well, because he served his country. He was a hero. He was one of, I think, 4 officers that died in the line of duty in a 1-week period here in the United States. And it's a reminder for me and a reminder for everybody else, both active and retired, again, just how dangerous this job is, and how willing these officers are to step up, run toward the gunfire to save others' lives.
And how appreciated their service is.
Yes.
Thank you so much for your time this morning. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Now let's send things over now to Brianna Willis, who is live outside of Mechanics Bank Arena with the Young Marines. Brianna?
Yeah, Brenna, I'm joined by the Kern County Young Marines. This is Derek Fuller, the unit commander. Thank you so much for joining us, Derek.
Thank you for having me.
So what kind of brought you guys here today?
The loss of Phillip Campas. It's a sad event that happened. It's one of those things that you go to work and there's no guarantee that you're coming back home.
And what does that mean to you?
It means every time you leave that house, you need to, give your wife and family a hug and a kiss, because you never know. You never know what could happen.
And, you brought your Young Marines out here. What kind of impact are you hoping that this has on them?
That this is real, the world. Like I said, you never know when it's your last day. It could happen anywhere, and you just never know, your last words that you say when you leave your house.
And tell me a little bit about your background, why you got into this work and what it means to you.
I've been in law enforcement for 17 and a half years in the correction side. So I know about, death and stuff like that. And the Young Marines, I've been in it going on 14 years. It's a great program for these kids. There's a lot that they can do in the program all around the U.S., as far as campouts and flight academies and stuff like that. We're also a drug demand reduction program, so we teach the effects of drugs and all that. And some of them even go to schools, local schools, and also teach that to get a ribbon to other students and stuff like that. So it's a great program.
And you mentioned you've been in law enforcement for 17 years. Is this the first deputy funeral that you've had to attend?
No, I've been to, I myself have been to several. This is the first one that this group has had that's been to.
Yeah. And being that you've been to several, what does it kind of do to your heart every time you do have to unfortunately attend one of these events?
it's sad because you never know. I mean, he left behind a family of 3, and that's going to be hard for them. 2 little girls and a 14-year-old boy, I believe. So it's it's devastating all the way around.
And is there any message that you want to just send to the community about this day, or anything about your past, being that you've been to a few other of these?
Just remember that when your husband, spouse, children leave to go to school or work, make sure that you leave on good words, and hug and kiss, because you never know. That might be the last time you see them.
Thank you so much. A powerful message from Derek Fuller. Thank you guys so much for joining us. We'll continue to stay out here and provide you full team coverage. Back to you guys in the studio.
And you can just hear the emotion in his voice. There's no guarantee that you're coming home. Mike, I don't know if you heard that interview, but when he started talking about how Deputy Campas is leaving behind 2 young girls and a 14-year-old boy, I know you're a father. It just, my heart breaks for this family.
Yeah. Oh, I completely agree with you. And you can just tell many of the people as they were arriving out here today, Brenna, as many of the different representatives from sheriff's departments and police departments, the CHP, statewide and from around the country, as they were arriving, they were exchanging pleasantries, as you would imagine, shaking hands. They're seeing faces of people that they haven't seen in a while. And then as they approached the front of the arena, it was almost a somber occasion because all voices went silent as they were filing inside the building. And there were a lot of emotions. As you heard Pastor Angelo Fraser, we talked to him just a short while ago, and he started as he was, going back over the details of what happened on that day and the days that followed. The emotions started to get to him as well. What I wanted to do before we get too far, and we're going to bring in Sheriff Mac Wimbish here in just one moment, I wanted to actually recognize some of the agencies. Now, there's absolutely no way that we can mention everyone who is here today, but you have every Kern County agency. We've noticed their vehicles that are here, including, if you consider the Kern High School District and the CSUB police, both on hand as well. But then you start looking around at some of the other vehicles that you see. Just moments ago, the Chicago PD, 2 representatives from the Chicago PD are here today. They're part of a Brotherhood of Fallen Officers, and it's a national association that has representatives all over the country. They came from Chicago to be here today for these services. Also, San Luis Obispo Sheriff's Department, Morro Bay PD, Ventura, Culver City, Santa Monica, El Dorado, Upland, San Bruno, Torrance. I was going around trying to see as many vehicles as I could to bring these to you. Also, Sacramento County just walked in their honor guard. The Bureau of Land Management honor guard is here, and I asked one of the representatives, I said, your honor guard is here, and they said, yes, Deputy Phillip Campas worked with us on several issues. So it's just amazing the reach and the touch that he had. The Burlington Northern Santa Fe Railroad Police here. You already heard from the Kern County Sheriff's Mounted Posse, and I mentioned that also not just Chicago, but other agencies. We understand that there are representatives here from Texas. Not quite sure, haven't seen them yet, but Portland, Oregon PD. Their vehicle, they drove all the way down to take part in this. And joining me this morning is former Kern County Sheriff Mac Wimbish, 2004 to 2006. Mac, good to see you this morning.
Good to see you, Mike.
Has this been truly amazing, the number of different agencies that you've seen this morning?
Truly amazing, and until you see it in person, you can't even explain how big this is. And the vehicles go from L Street to Q Street, and they're 3 lanes there. They're parked other places as well. So this is something law enforcement always comes together for, because it's like being in the trenches together, and then something happens to one of you, and everybody comes back together.
We talk about different things. I mean, there's always law enforcement individuals, deputies, officers that are killed in the line of duty. Not always in the manner which befell Deputy Phillip Campas, of course, but car accidents, medical conditions as well. And you always see this type of turnout.
Yes, you do. And when they're responding to calls and something happens in that response, the same thing. And I always wonder, 14, 16, 17 years later, that it's happened for me, that how's the family doing? And we always have them in our prayers and our thoughts. We never forget that.
And during your short tenure, though, you also experienced loss of two deputies.
Yes, I did. Within a 25-month period, there's 2 deputies that we lost, and that was extremely difficult on my watch. Today, we still think about those families, and because they have to go through a lot, they sacrificed a lot, and we don't think about the families at home when the officers are out there working, and the families sitting home wondering, are they going to come back home after their shift? But that's the life that they live when you go into law enforcement.
Mm-hmm. You never truly leave the law enforcement community, do you, as sheriff?
No, you can't. You can't. It's in your blood. I had 38 years, and it's in your blood. It's part of your life, and no, you never get out of it.
Now, as emotional as a day like today is there some solace that you get back together and you start seeing people that you maybe haven't seen in 10, 20 years?
Absolutely, because those people are still out there and they're still doing their job. They're still responding to calls, and when everybody's running away from something, you don't have to look, because coming from behind you, there's going to be some law enforcement running into it, and they're going to confront the bad guys. And so, you're always a part of that group, and it never gets out of your blood.
Not wanting to single out the Kern County Sheriff's Department, but we are, because it was one of theirs. That just talk about just the brotherhood and the loyalty and love that this department has?
Oh, a lot. From the 1800s, this department's been out there. In fact, the first loss was in the 1800s, and they've had 31 people in the Kern County Sheriff's Department lost over the years. So it's always a brotherhood, and you think back and you look at that. Some are lost in aircraft accidents, but you know all that, you remember all that. And when you see people out in the community at a restaurant, one of the families or something, it all comes back to you. And so it never goes away. And if you're in law enforcement, I don't care what the patch says, you're all part of that brotherhood.
Very good. Sheriff Mac Wimbish, appreciate it this morning. Thank you so much. Okay. Good seeing you.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to let them get inside and take their place. The doors opened early, actually, Brenna. It was scheduled to open at 9:30, but there were so many law enforcement agencies standing out here, gathered together, sharing stories, talking, greeting each other, that the arena opened the doors a little bit early. The sun started to come up and get a little warm out here, so they started bringing the people in. As you can see behind me, more people. See county employees. I saw a group of people from the Bakersfield City School District came in as well. There has been a tremendous outpouring so far, and we are still just about an hour away from the start of the funeral services for Deputy Phillip Campas. We're expecting to get information here any time now about the itinerary and how the services will unfold. We know that they're expected to go about 90 minutes. So we are still hoping to talk to Sheriff Carl Sparks. He is slated to stop by and visit with us, along with Jason Geis. And coming up in a little bit, we're going to talk to Jason, retired U.S. Army Sergeant Major, who spent time in Iraq back in 2004, and we're going to talk to him not just about the impact on law enforcement and the family, but services that are available to help deputies, officers to deal with these types of emotions. We know that almost 24 sheriff's deputies requested emergency leave following the shooting, and so he's going to have a particular insight into one program that he leads himself that begins actually next week. So we're going to have more on that, speak with a few more people as they make their way into Mechanics Bank Arena as our coverage of the funeral services for Deputy Phillip Campas continues. But for right now, let's send it back to the studio. Brenna?
Mike, thanks so much. In the hours and days following the tragic events of July 25th, residents rallied around one another to honor fallen Deputy Phillip Campas and to lend support to his family. 23 ABC's Kristen Vartan spoke with local officials and those who knew the deputy best.
Friday night, hundreds of people holding candles like the ones behind me, illuminating the Kern County Sheriff's Office headquarters in remembrance of the late Deputy Phillip Campas.
We answer a calling to go out and put our lives on the line, knowing that we may not come home.
It was just Sunday that KCSO's Deputy Phillip Campas answered the call, as he did many times. On that day, it was for a hostage situation in Wasco, but he did not come home. The Kern County community feeling his loss ever since.
What we want to do, we want to honor his memory and show support to his blue family and his blood family that are mourning his loss.
Friday, the Kern County first responders and the Thin Line Foundation holding a vigil in Campas's memory.
We feel it's a very important thing for law enforcement to know that the community is behind them, and we do care about them, and we wanted to be able to bring people out and show them that.
And the community showed up. From a memorial parade for Deputy Campas starting at Chewy's in Northwest Bakersfield, then to the vigil at KCSO in Oildale.
And it is because of the human being who is caring, who is kind, who loved others that our community has shown this outpouring of support.
Giving back to the badge, Bakersfield's Lisa Kendrick organized the parade Friday night leading up to the vigil. She's also behind the Phillip Campas billboard going up on Mohawk and Rosedale Highway Saturday. For her, Campas's passing hits close to home.
My father was a sheriff and he passed away, and so all of the steps that have come along have brought up a lot of memories. And knowing that he was the same age as my father when he passed and had a young family, I just wanted to make sure that they were going to be taken care of.
And a week from Friday, the Kern County Sheriff's Office will be holding a memorial service for Deputy Campas at Mechanics Bank Arena. In Bakersfield, Kristen Barton, 23 ABC News, connecting you.
And other vigils taking place to honor the life of Phillip Campas, including at the Liberty Bell. Kern County District Attorney Cynthia Zimmer, an advocate for victims of violence, spoke about Deputy Campas's service to the community.
Things like this are not supposed to happen in Wasco. 5 people dead. Things like this are not supposed to happen anywhere. He put his life on the line every day to keep us safe. And he died a hero. He died rushing in to rescue people, and he did so and it cost him his life.
If you're just joining us now, the funeral service for Deputy Phillip Campas is set to start in just under an hour's time. Here is a live look inside Mechanics Bank Arena. Now, there is a slideshow taking place honoring Deputy Phillip Campas, and we're going to just take a moment and to watch this. At this point, we don't know very many details about the deputy, other than the fact that he was a father, a husband to 3 young children. So let's just take a moment and take a look at his life play out here in some photos.
I knew the stakes were high right from the start. When she dealt the cards, I bet my heart. Now I just found a game that I can't play, and this is where the cowboy rides away, and my heart is sinking like the setting sun, setting on the things I wish I'd done. It's time to say goodbye to yesterday. This is where the cowboy rides away.
So you've been looking at a slide shot that is currently playing inside Mechanics Bank Arena, kind of showing some of the other sides that we haven't yet seen of Deputy Phillip Campas. We, of course, will learn more about the type of person he was in about an hour's time. Now, right now, we are going to go back outside to Mike Hart, who is with a member of the Dallas Police Department. Mike?
All right, Brenna, thank you very much. Yeah, we've been talking about just the number of law enforcement agencies that have shown up for today's ceremony from all over the state and literally all over the country. And joining us right now is Senior Corporal Brandon Bird with the Dallas Police Department, a member of what's called the Brotherhood of Fallen Officers. Thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Can you just talk about when does the Brotherhood of Fallen Officers get notified every time an officer or a deputy it goes down?
Not necessarily notified. I mean, we follow the news like everybody else, and as soon as when we see it, there's channels, people notify each other, and we show up.
Now, the Brotherhood, actually, we were talking just a little while ago with two members of the Chicago Police Department. How big is this circle?
I'm not even sure how many chapters we have. I mean, we Dallas PD, Fort Worth PD, Aurora, Colorado. Oh, wow. Chicago, New York, Suffolk County. I'm naming people that are here right now. Yeah, there's chapters all over the U.S. and they coordinate who, we try to have a presence at everybody's funeral around the country.
How many of these are we talking about on an annual basis?
I start to say I wish I could tell you, but I don't know. It's quite a few. You see the news. There's quite a few deaths around. Right now, I think there's another one in Minnesota, so there's officers up there right now. So
when you come to an event like this and you see the outpouring of agencies we're talking about Kern County now, of course, from all over the county and the state of California, what does that mean to you?
It's just the end goal is just a feeling of support that you're not, especially if you're a smaller agency or whatever. It's just you're a part of a bigger family. I don't know how else to say it, but. In Dallas, we had a lot of officers lost at one point, 5 years ago, and we got to see officers from all over the world. That was prior to me being a part of this organization, and seeing everybody that came out. It was a nice feeling, to say the least. Just to see everybody kind of show up.
Senior Corporal Brandon Bird, thank you so much for your time this morning. Appreciate it.
Yep, thanks, sir.
Coming all the way from Dallas, Texas here, as you mentioned there, we've seen agencies from all over the state, not just with sheriff's departments, the CHP and police departments, not only here statewide and nationwide, but we've also saw agencies I mentioned earlier, like the Bureau of Land Management. They have an honor guard that came out here, and one of the representatives telling me at the time, when I asked him why they came out for this, said that Deputy Campas came out and helped them on one or more cases, and so they felt compelled in their duty to come down here and be represented today. Most of the people are inside right now. There are a few people that are still showing up, and as I mentioned, we are still about 45 minutes away from the start of the funeral service, so we'll continue our coverage out here and talk with more people. We're expected to talk with former Sheriff Carl Sparks. He is slated to stop by and share some of his thoughts, along with U.S. Army Sergeant Major Jason Geis, retired, who's going to be sharing some information basically about some of the programs that he is involved with, helping families, helping officers, military deal with post-traumatic stress situations. So we're going to have his comments coming up a bit as well. But filing in this morning has simply been overwhelming, watching the number of law enforcement agencies that have appeared here today. So we'll continue to follow that, bring you more interviews as the morning progresses. Right now, let's send it back to the studio with Brenna.
Okay, thanks, Mike. And one of the big takeaways from today, we're learning that Phillip Campas was part of a bigger family. One of the speakers we heard from today referred to it as a blue family. And let's send things over now to Brianna Willis, who is live outside of Mechanics Bank Arena. And I understand that you're with another police officer who traveled here to honor Deputy Campas.
Yeah, that's right, Brenna. I'm joined by two members of the Brotherhood for the Fallen. This is Police Officer Lisa Prudenti and Sergeant Stephen Boyd. Tell me a little bit first about Brotherhood for the Fallen.
Brotherhood for the Fallen, there are chapters across the country. We are law enforcement officers who pay our respects and honor the families of the fallen by sending delegates to every funeral for every fallen officer.
And you said it originated in Chicago, which is where your police station is. Tell me a little bit more about, where it originated.
From Chicago, state of Illinois. Some officers had the idea to put this together, and they made it happen. And then they reached out across the country, and a lot of other cities joined. It was a really good idea.
And so you guys are both members, and why did you choose to join and travel around the country for the fallen officers?
at the end, we're family. You know, it doesn't matter where you are. That could be my brother, sister, wife, husband, and you know, it's a lonely time sometimes. You don't realize, and so it's the smallest thing we can do to honor them, pay our respects to the communities they're from as well as their families.
These men and women that have lost their lives in line of duty are heroes. Make no mistake about it, they are heroes. They gave their lives trying to protect you and me, you know, and our family. I've lost several people who I've used to work with that were murdered in the line of duty. I almost was killed, so I know what it's like. And if we can travel anywhere to give people some slight joy or to take the pain away for a little amount of time, we're going to do that.
And you said, you know, it almost happened to you too. Tell me, what does that kind of do to your heart?
To my heart?
To your heart.
You get to realize what's really important. A lot of extraneous things in your life you throw away and you concentrate on loved ones and relationships, and that's what this is about.
And you guys are here today for Phillip Campas. What have you learned about him, and why was it so important for you guys to come all this way for him?
I don't know much about him except that he's a father of 3 children, and you know, those children now don't have their dad. So how could you not come?
It would just reinforce to me that he lost his life trying to protect us, people. So that's enough for me.
And is there any last message that you guys just want to, you know, send to the community, as you know, you've been to multiple of these, unfortunately?
We're here. We're here to support you. And thank you for having us and allowing us to be part of this.
I would just like to ask the people to remember your first responders, remember your firefighters, your doctors, your nurses, and your police officers, because they're really doing the hard work, as you see today.
Well, thank you guys both so much for joining us and coming out here today to honor Phillip Campas. Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. Chilling message from the Brotherhood of the Fallen. They travel all over the nation for days like today. We'll send it back to you guys in the studio.
Thanks, Brianna. And Mike had mentioned that he had seen a vehicle from Chicago, that officer there traveling all the way here just to pay his respects. Okay, now let's take a live look inside Mechanics Bank Arena. We have been watching a little bit earlier slideshow play out for Deputy Campas, and throughout the next few hours here this morning, we're expecting to learn a little bit more about who exactly he was as a person, as a husband, as a father, as a son. We know that he was with KCSO for 5 years. Before that, in 2008, he was deployed to Afghanistan, where he was stationed for 9 months as a machine gunner. Now, as you can see there, people already starting to fill up that arena. Lots of people coming through the doors, law enforcement from various agencies across the country. We're just gonna stay on this shot for a moment and just take a listen and maybe a look at some of the photos that they're showing of fallen Deputy Phillip Campas.
We've no less days to sing God's praise than when we first begun. How does drill pertain to being professional? Amazing grace. You said it. How sweet.
Sir, could we all do it together, sir?
Sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now am found. Was blind, but now I see. Looking back on the memory of the dance we shared beneath the stars above. For a moment, all the world was right. And how could I have known that you'd ever say goodbye? And now I'm glad I didn't know the way it all would end, the way it all would go. Our lives are better left to chance. I could have missed the pain, but I'd have had to miss the dance. Holding you, I held everything. For a moment, wasn't I the king? But if I'd only known how the king would fall, hey, who's to say? You know I might have changed it all. And now I'm glad I didn't know the way it all would end, the way it all would go. Our lives are better left to chance. I could have missed the pain, but I'd have had to miss the dance. Yes, my life.
If you're just joining us now, we've been watching a slideshow there of fallen Deputy Phillip Campas, showing kind of his softer side. You can see him there with one of his daughters. His two daughters and a son with his wife Christina. The pair were married in 2011. Now we're still about 40 minutes or so away from the funeral service. At this point, we still don't know too many details about how this service is going to play out. We know that there's going to be numerous speakers. We're assuming that there will be at least someone from KCSO talking about his contribution to the department. We had heard earlier Sheriff Donnie Youngblood talk about how he was a star. And just hearing some of the different folks that Mike has been interviewing coming into the building, it's very clear that he had an impact not only on KCSO, but surrounding law enforcement departments. Ahead of Deputy Campas's funeral services, 23 ABC's Brianna Willis caught up with State Senator Shannon Grove.
Good morning. I'm here at the Mechanics Bank Arena where we're at the funeral for the fallen Deputy Sheriff Phillip Campas. I'm joined right now by Senator Shannon Grove. Tell us what brings you here today?
To honor the service and the life of Phillip Campas, who was an extraordinary hero to our community and to our nation. He served in the United States Marine Corps. He came back here, he worked in the Sheriff's Department, and he trained a lot of the officers that are on the streets today protecting us and keeping our community safe.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming out. And did you happen to know him? Did you ever meet him? And what kind of have you learned about him, over the past few weeks?
So yeah, I've met him several times. We do the Glenville Rodeo and there's a lot of events in the Glenville area, and he is a cowboy, hence the horses out here. And so I had a lot of time to spend with him in the Glenville events. And then he also rode around our properties with some cowboys out in our area.
And, what does this kind of do to your heart, being here today, honoring him, since you knew him so well?
Well, I don't know him well. I just knew him from events that we had attended in Glenville. But I can tell you that he is a hero. And my heart grieves for his family. My heart grieves for the loss of the hostage family that he tried to save. But Phillip Campas was a true hero to this community. And it is a tragic loss that we have endured.
And is there any last message you want to send to the community just about today and about Phillip Campas?
You know, we live in a volatile time, and we need law enforcement, and we need to support law enforcement. We need to back the blue. We need to make sure that they're funded, and we need to make sure that they're out there making sure that our community is safe. These individuals that put on a uniform get up every day to protect us, and we need to honor them.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your time. Enjoy the service.
Thank you.
Back to you guys in the studio. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Brianna. And as we keep hearing over and over this morning, the loss of a first responder is felt beyond the immediate family, impacting a large number of people. But it's the law enforcement family, their own extended family, that can provide support beyond that emotional toll. 23 ABC's Mike Hart is joining us now live outside of Mechanics Bank Arena with a widow's story.
Brenda, hi, thank you. You're exactly right. All the people that we've been talking to as they've been going in have been expressing just their desire to be here, to support one of their brothers that has fallen in this time. And the support is coming from all over the country. But it also gives us time to reflect back on other widows, other members of our community that have lost loved ones who have served in law enforcement. Whether it was a situation like Deputy Phillip Campas going into a dangerous and deadly situation to try and rescue people, officers or deputies that have been killed responding to calls or chasing suspects, or others that have simply passed away due to, say, medical conditions while in the line of duty. So I went back and I caught up with Shannon Ely. Her husband, Mark Ely, passed away 11 years ago. Just about the support she received then and the report she's still receiving today.
The law enforcement community stops when one of their own falls.
In this family, no one fights alone.
It's been more than 10 years since Shannon Ely lost her husband, former CHP officer Mark Ely.
I have realized in years, and I realized it early on, is that I didn't know what I needed.
Mark suffered a stroke as he was leaving for work 2 days after Christmas in 2009. A second stroke several months later took his life.
There are certain things that you yourself have to make the decision about. And there wasn't one decision I had to make alone.
The death of Sheriff's Deputy Phillip Campas recently, along with other members of law enforcement over the years, brings back memories of what Shannon went through. At first, she says it was simply about getting through the moment.
You look in the mirror and you don't see the old person anymore. You've got to look in the mirror and say, I'm going to learn you. I don't know you now. I don't know you. But I'm willing to get to know you.
But she says there's a lot of people along the way to help you find the road back.
I don't think you really realize how big your family is until you see other people hurting also. It's not just CHP, it's first responding. And first responders are definitely a different part of our normal society.
And she says the law sometimes reveals strengths in you that were fostered by your partner.
It takes a unique person to do that because they see so much. And to be able to go home and be a father and a wife, a significant other, and to be able to go to soccer games and cheer and try to turn the volume down on that and be present, that takes skill. That takes a special kind of spirit.
One thing she learned was the need to reach out. Shannon started a fundraiser in Mark's name, bringing in former CHP Commissioner Joe Farrow, who became a regular fixture at this event. For him, it was a chance to ease some of his own pain.
And he goes, thank you. Thank you for allowing me to be a part of the journey that you're going through. If you reach out and then you get something, you think you're doing it for yourself, but you know what? You don't know what you're doing for that other person.
Shannon says Mark will always be a part of her life and their daughter Morgan. And as mom and daughter make new memories, they'll always have reminders of Mark through their eyes and the stories of others.
We can talk about her dad and not feel sad and awful all the time. That it's okay to talk about him. And don't ever stop telling the stories. Whoever your first responding unit is, they need the brothers and sisters that are still here to be able to talk to.
And in a special community this big, finding someone to share with shouldn't be hard to do.
All right, and I should mention this, Shannon Ely, in the wake of her husband's death, trying to look for something to do to sort of honor him, she started the Tips for Chips fundraiser that goes on once a year, every year right here in Bakersfield. It was a way, she said at first, to help just cope with the loss, and then it became much more than that, because all the donations of everything that is raised here in Kern County for that annual event is given to the CHP's Widows and Orphans Fund that is used to help other people like herself. And one final note, ironically, we're standing here outside of Mechanics Bank Arena, and just to tell you just how many different organizations get touched by an individual in law enforcement. Mark Ely, not only a CHP officer in the Fort Tejon office, he was also an off-ice official here with the Bakersfield Condors organization throughout his career as well. Many people within that organization also remembering him and his loss, as we do today and every time that we lose someone in the law enforcement community. Brenna?
And Mike, we've just got some new information coming into our newsroom. We're getting a better sense of how exactly things are going to play out. So stay with me here. We now know that an honor guard is going to escort the casket into the arena. As well, we've learned that Sheriff Youngblood is going to be speaking, but things are going to start off with Dick Taylor. He'll be giving the opening remarks and the eulogy, and I understand that you have had some conversations with him this week.
Yeah, this has been big for Dick Taylor. Of course, everyone knows him, the Patriots of Kern. He's the president of that chapter. He has worked with Veterans Services, Veterans Affairs, getting support and benefits for veterans in our local community. He's been very active and a very big spokesperson for veterans in our community. And, you know, you would think with the number of veterans, we're talking in the tens of thousands that reside here in Kern County, Phillip Campas was an individual that he got to know very well. He was involved with several organizations that Dick Taylor was involved with as well. He got to know him, the family, very well over the years. In fact, we were hoping to get him here this morning and talk to him. He, from what we understand, underwent oral surgery earlier this week and was told not to speak and actually had to get permission in order to go in here today. I don't think anything was really going to stop him from giving his remarks, but he was very close with Phillip Campas. He didn't want to talk too much about it. He was very emotional, but I think we can expect to hear some of that. We will hear some of that this morning now that we know that he is one of the speakers at the podium today. So it's going to be a very, very emotional day for many people that are here. As I mentioned earlier on, some of the gentlemen and women that we had talked to as they were coming in from different law enforcement agencies, not just here, statewide, nationwide, that have made the trip down here in order to remember and honor Phillip Campas. But even, you know, obviously they don't know him, but they know of him. They know of the spirit that he was and the character of the man he was. So I think that's truly what's being honored here today.
It certainly is. Mike, thanks so much. We'll touch base with you again in a few minutes. We're about a half hour away or so from the service getting underway. Turning now to local law enforcement agencies across Kern County continuing to show support in the wake of Phillip Campas's death. 23BC caught up with District Attorney Cynthia Zimmer ahead of the funeral service.
Good morning. Right now I'm still at Mechanics Bank Arena and I'm currently joined by District Attorney Cynthia Zimmer. Cynthia Zimmer, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you. And so tell us, what does it mean for you to be here today, you know, to honor, you know, Kern County's very own?
Well, I'm Kern County's District Attorney. I'm the Chief Public Safety Officer. So anytime anything like this happens, it really affects us all. It affects us in law enforcement. It has obviously affected the entire community. We are heartbroken about what happened. Our deepest condolences go out to the Campas family as well as the entire Sheriff's Department. But I hope this really hits home. It's a grim reminder that peace officers put their lives on the line every single day to keep us safe. You know, since I've been DA, there have been 17 different instances in which someone tried to kill a peace officer in Kern County. 17 times. But on the 18th time, they were successful. And I We do whatever we can to protect peace officers who get hurt in the line of duty. That's not just a cost of doing business. They are truly victims of crime, and we're seeing more and more of it, unfortunately. But I am so pleased, and my heart is warmed to see everyone that is here today to pay tribute to this hero who chose to go in and try to rescue someone, and that people are here to pay respects for the good work that he did and the kind man that he was.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. And as district attorney and in your career, is this one of the first times you've been to a fallen deputy funeral?
No. When I was a young DA in my 20s, there was a killing much like this of Deputy Rick McHale from the Kern County Sheriff's Department. I knew him. I went to high school and college with him. The first time I ever did a ride-along with Sheriff's Department, I rode with Rick. I worked a lot of drug cases with Rick. He was a really good, what we call, dope cop, and he was killed in 1989. And that really was a very, very sad thing for the department and for me personally, because I'd known him so long. And he was not only, a great peace officer, but a good friend. So no, unfortunately, this is not my first time, and there have been many over the years. In my 37 years as a prosecutor, it's sad. It's been about 6 years since David Nelson passed away from the Bakersfield Police Department, almost to the day. So.
Then lastly, what does this kind of do to your heart, being to other ones, being to this one? We know you've done multiple vigils, over the past 2 weeks. What does it kind of do to your heart?
Well, I think that, what does it do to my heart? I suppose that it just makes me know what peace officers will do for someone they don't even know. They are willing to lay down their life for someone they don't even know. I don't think a lot of young people really understand perhaps the commitment of what peace officers do. We hear about the bad things sometimes, occasionally, that there are those that don't do what they're supposed to do, but by and large, the Sheriff's Department is full of people like Deputy Campas who would lay down their life for a stranger.
Absolutely. And is there any last message that you want to send to the community about today or about this incident?
I would just like to thank the community for everything they have done to support Sheriff Youngblood and all the people at the Kern County Sheriff's Department. I talked to Sheriff Youngblood a couple of days ago about the support he is getting, not only from Kern County, but from all over the United States, the outpouring of sympathy, and it's just really, it's very, very nice.
Yeah, absolutely. We've seen lots of people from all over the nation joining us here today. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. Yeah, thank you so much. And we'll send it back to you guys in the studio.
And that report from 23 ABC's Brianna Willis. Now here is a live look from inside Mechanics Bank Arena. You can see a crowd really starting to gather there, fill up those seats inside the arena. As we've been mentioning throughout the day, there's been officers from across the country, people who knew him, people who didn't know him, as well community members, people that just wanted to come and say thank you. Thank you for paying the ultimate, for making the ultimate sacrifice for our community. Now let's take a look here at some photos of fallen Deputy Phillip Campas and his family and his friends.
Love for the Father and the Son. Oh, how we cried the day you left us. We gathered round your grave to grieve. Wish I could see angels' faces when they hear your sweet voice sing. So go rest high on that mountain. Son, your work on earth is done.
We've been looking at a slide shot that's playing out inside a Mechanics Bank Arena. You can see there that photo. That is one of Deputy Campas's children. He has 2 young daughters and a son as well. We saw some photos of him on his wedding day. Him and his wife Christina got married in 2011 as well. There were some photos from way back in the day when he played football at East Bakersfield High School. Just a really touching tribute and giving us a sense of who exactly he was as a person. And we're expecting to learn more during the service, which is scheduled to start in about 15 minutes or so. Now, if you're just joining us now, we're looking back at the life of Phillip Jesse Campas. He was born in 1986 to Jesse and Christine Campas. He grew up here in Bakersfield, as mentioned. He played football for East Bakersfield High School, and he joined the Kern County Sheriff's Office in 2016. Deputy Campas served the department for 5 years before his life was tragically cut short.
He was just a star in our organization that when you talk about police officers that run toward gunfire, that's him.
Deputy Phillip Campas proudly served his country and the county he grew up in, joining the Kern County Sheriff's Office in February of 2016 after serving as a United States Marine.
Deputy Campas served as a sergeant in Afghanistan in 2008, Operation Enduring Freedom. Deputy Campas served the Sheriff's Office in our community as a patrol deputy, a SWAT team member, an Honor Guard member, and recruit training officer.
His impact in just 5 short years, profound.
This Deputy Campas, he touched everybody in our organization. 5 years, everybody knew who he was. He was on the Honor Guard. He was an academy instructor. He probably touched this organization as much as anyone that I've ever seen in such a short period of time.
He was a husband, son, brother, and father to 3 young children.
He's got a heart of gold. He's softy inside, but a hard and a strong guy on the outside appearance, and he'd do anything for anybody, and he did, and it showed it on his last day.
Deputy Phillip Campas was 35 years old. As mentioned, the funeral is scheduled to start at 11 this morning, and we will be airing the entire service on 23 ABC instead of our regularly scheduled 11 a.m. newscast. The Kern County Sheriff's Office is slated to release, they have released more information about who exactly will be speaking. We know that Dick Taylor will be doing the eulogy. At this point, though, we don't know exactly very many specifics of how this will play out, but we do know that it is going to last for about half an hour or so. Immediately following the public memorial service, a procession will take place escorting Deputy Campas to the National Cemetery. That's where a private family burial will be held. It's important to note it is not open to the public. KCSO is asking for your cooperation to make sure that the procession goes smoothly. So here's a look at the route that it will take. It will head east on Truxton Avenue toward Q Street, continuing east on Truxton. Then the procession will head south onto Union Avenue and merge onto Highway 58 towards Mojave, and then exit onto the 223 west towards Arvin. Again, the service at the National Cemetery is private and is only for family. Earlier this morning, 23 ABC's Mike Hart spoke to Pastor Angelo Fraser, who has been a constant face at the many vigils held for Deputy Campas.
Is Pastor Angelo Fraser. Pastor, thank you for being here this morning. Appreciate it. Good seeing you. First of all, take us back to that moment on July 25th when you first got word that 2 Kern County Sheriff's deputies were injured in that SWAT team standoff.
Well, my heart, I just sank. I just sank and I began to cry. And I just got in my car. We got a call from the BPD chaplain to assist. Got in my car and was driving, didn't know where to go. Didn't know where to go to Wasco or to KMC. And I said, well, let me KMC. And I wound up at KMC, and it was amazing. It was a very just dreadful day, not only for the officer, but for those that lost their lives too. I've been volunteering for over 27 years. I've seen these things, but today, like you mentioned, this is overwhelming, the community support, and I'm convinced we don't need to defund the police, we need to refund them.
When you talk about going to Kern Medical on that day, our cameras outside showing as Deputy Campas's body was being brought out and people, but you were actually inside. Can you share a little bit about what was going on then before what we saw and showed everyone?
We were in the room with his wife, and she was hugging him, and everyone standing around, and they did the last rites, and they brought the flag in and put it on, and it was just, we were there for a good long time, just weeping and crying. And then they asked us to step out into the hallway, and Kern Medical, is stuff going on. They got people in the hallway, all kinds of things. We go back out into the noise and everything. We're standing there, and when they opened that door and brought that casket, brought that stretcher with a flag on it, right when it hit the hallway, everything in that thing stopped. Doctors, nurses, it was like the moment just froze. A deep reverence, and it was like, this isn't supposed to happen. These are the guys that run to bullets. These are the guys that protect the good guys and the bad guys. But Mike, I got to tell you, I've been doing this for a long time. I have never experienced a moment like that. I thought I was having issues because I couldn't hear anything. Everything stopped, and it was dead silence until they rolled him into the back of that van, and it was just silence. Silence like I have never heard before.
We heard from Sheriff Youngblood like a day after all of this. He gave a press conference. He talked about some of these same things that you're mentioning. But the thing that is never a surprise, it seems, is that the outreach of support, not just locally, and as looking around, you see every single agency from Kern County that has a representative here today. But did anyone reach out to you? Were people reaching out? Did you get contacted by anyone wondering how they could help?
Absolutely. I got phones just buzzing. People, this cut across everything. Everybody, and when things like this happen, Mike, no one disputes prayer. We were out there at Kern Medical praying with Sheriff Youngblood, praying with anybody, praying with the officers, the highway patrol, walking up to people, giving them a hug. Everyone's crying, just praying, because God has the answer for this.
You know, and I can hear the emotion in your voice right now. But also, since that day, there's also been the memorial at the Liberty Bell. There was a candlelight vigil that was being held. And could you see a sort of a cross section of the community coming out for this? It wasn't just law enforcement.
No, it was actually the community coming out. It cut across everything. We had people that wouldn't normally come out for anything came out in support of law enforcement. Sheriff Spark came out. You know, he's struggling with a lot of physical things. He took everything he had to come out. He said, we need to stand for law enforcement. Strong law enforcement means safe community. And so, yeah, I saw both vigils downtown and also with the Sheriff Department, people from all over saying, no, we need to support our law enforcement. And we do.
What did it mean to you just watching the number of agencies and deputies, officers, et cetera, walking in?
Overwhelming. Overwhelming. I cannot believe, but the community is saying resoundingly, we stand with law enforcement. We stand with the families that have lost so much today. We stand for the future, and we can set a green light of hope for this country, and I think we can do it here in Kern County.
Pastor Angelo, Fraser, thank you for your time this morning. We appreciate it to allow you to head back into Mechanics Bank Arena. Thank you again.
That was an interview that Mike had done earlier this morning. We're going to send it back out now live to Mike, who is outside of Mechanics Bank Arena. Mike?
Thanks, Brenna. Yeah, things are getting ready to start here. The funeral services in just a few moments. The last few people that are arriving here. One of the biggest issues has been trying literally to find any type of parking space around the arena. People are parking blocks away now just to try and walk and get here to pay their respects to Deputy Phillip Campas. Now, we were hoping to get former Kern County Sheriff Carl Sparks to join us live. He, from what I understand, went into a different area of the arena to get to his seat right now. So we wanted to go back to a vigil. Now, as you know, that there's been several ceremonies, a candlelight vigil, a prayer memorial at the Liberty Bell downtown, and Carl Sparks showed up, and we were just talking to Angelo Fraser right there. Pastor Fraser saying he hadn't seen Carl Sparks in person in quite some time. He was the sheriff of Kern County from 1991 through 2003. And let's play back a little bit of his comments during that prayer vigil. Carl Sparks, during his tenure as sheriff, known to wear his emotion as a badge.
Sheriff Carl Sparks. We are very fortunate we live in Kern County.
You know, they say what a great police department and sheriff's office and highway patrol officers we have in this county. The reason that we have these great men and women is because of you, the community. You support law enforcement. You want them to do their job. You want them to go home at night. But they want to do the job because, folks, they love this community. They love the life we live. We're very fortunate. When I was sheriff, I'd go to other counties and talk about what law enforcement did in this county. And they'd all shake their head and say, God, I wish we were there. Ladies and gentlemen, we're there. There's one God, and that God can lead us to right this country and do the right thing and make this country what it can be. But they can't do it without you. Without your support, law enforcement is not going to win this battle. Law enforcement cannot win this battle over crime and violence. The community can. Let's pray. Jesus Christ, you're our Lord. You are the one. You're the one that can lead this country back to the greatness that it deserves. But it can't do it without you. And the deputy that lost his life is a signal for this community to get united behind doing what is right. What's not politically right, what is the right thing for this country to do. And that's follow Jesus Christ, our Lord. Thank you. Amen.
And those are remarks from Carl Sparks that were made at a prayer vigil outside the Liberty Bell downtown earlier in the week. Now, as I mentioned, we're getting ready to start the services that you can see right here on 23. But the one thing that's truly amazing and overwhelming has been the number of agencies and representatives from all across Kern County, the state of California, and really the nation. We had Senior Corporal Brandon Bird of the Dallas Police Department. He's with an organization known as the Brotherhood of Fallen Officers. They send representatives from all over the country to various funeral services for fallen deputies. And we talked to him just a short while ago, and he was telling us that there are representatives here of that organization from not only Dallas, Texas, but from Chicago, New York, and several other areas that have come to Kern County to be here today to pay their respects to Deputy Phillip Campas. Also, just looking at the cars along Truxton Avenue that will lead the procession out to the National Cemetery following today's services. Just some of the ones: Morro Bay, Ventura, Culver City, even as far away as Portland, Oregon on hand today. So we are preparing to begin those services. We are going to send it back to the studio. Mike Hart reporting live, 23 ABC outside Mechanics Bank Arena.
Thanks, Mike. And we're going to head back inside the arena. You can see quite a large crowd gathered there. I'm told that Deputy Phillip Campas's family has just sat down. So that's a really good, clear indication that things are going to be starting on time any minute now. Now, 23 ABC will bring you full coverage of the service starting at 11 in just a few minutes on air and as well on our social media and streaming platforms. So let's go ahead and listen in. morning, and thank you for joining us for a special edition of 23 ABC. I'm Brenna Rose. You're looking at a live look inside Mechanics Bank Arena, where services for fallen Deputy Phillip Campas are underway. Let's listen in.
Please be seated. Welcome and good morning. We are gathered here today to honor the legacy of Deputy Phillip Jesse Campas. I would like to welcome Phillip's family, friends, all the allied law enforcement agencies, and public supporters for attending today. Your support is appreciated. My name is Dick Taylor. A week ago today, I underwent surgery at UCLA to treat a squamous cell carcinoma on the side of my tongue, which resulted in the removal of part of my tongue. The surgery was a success. So you may notice that I have a little bit of difficulty in pronouncing certain words. I want to get that squared away before we start, so you don't think I showed up to my friend's funeral under the influence. I was Philip's friend for many years, and I will be the celebrant for today's memorial service. Today we will be hearing from several of Philip's friends and co-workers. They will share with us their memories of Philip. These stories will become part of his legacy and a part of the larger legacy of the groups of people his life touched. Amongst them, the United States Marine Corps, the Kern County Sheriff's Department, and of course, his family and close friends. The family would like to recognize several dignitaries and elected officials who have taken the time to join us to honor Philip. From Congressman Kevin McCarthy's office, Judy McCarthy, and Field Representative Perry Finzel, Congressman David Valadeo, along with his field representatives Cody Moses and Waylon Young, Assistant United States Attorney Christopher Baker, State Senator Shannon Grove, State Assemblyman Vince Fong, California Attorney General Rob Bonta, from the Kern County Board of Supervisors, Chairman Philip Peters, Zach Scribner, Mike Maggard, David Couch, and Leticia Perez. Kern County District Attorney Cynthia Zimmer, former Kern County Sheriff Carl Sparks, Bakersfield Police Department Chief of Police Greg Terry, and from the City of Bakersfield, Mayor Karen Goh, and City Council members Andre Gonzalez, Jackie Sullivan, and Patty Gray. Thank you for joining us in honoring the memory of Philip. At this time, I would like to introduce Deacon Moore, who will give the opening prayer.
Good morning. Please bow your heads and join me in asking for God's blessing. Heavenly Father, we thank you for bringing us here together today as a unified community so that we may celebrate a life well lived, a life of sacrifice. In sacred scripture you teach, greater love has no man than this, to lay down his life for his friends. Lord God, we mourn today the loss of our friend, our brother. Father, we pray that as we recall and share the memories of the gift that you have given us in Philip, that you send down your Holy Spirit, the Comforter, to rest upon each and every person gathered here today, and for those watching from home. As family and friends come forward to share, help them to be strong. Support them with your grace. Lord, we have already witnessed in our sorrow and our loss your divine hand of unification through the heroic sacrifice of your servant. Touch our hearts, we pray, O Lord. Heal our sorrows as we mourn. We pray these things in the name above every name, in the name of our Lord Jesus Christ. Amen.
I want to take a few minutes to talk about what an influence Phillip Campas had on me and our family. Actually, it precedes Philip's birth. Because it's important to tell the story of when his dad, Jesse, and I first became good friends after we both served in the Marine Corps. Jesse went to work for the new Frito-Lay plant out by Buttonwillow. And we were talking about it, and Jesse was one of our tire store customers down at Taylor Tire and Brake. And I'm like, man, I'd really like to go see that plant someday. He goes, okay, I'll see what I can do. So when he comes back and he says, hey, they're only going to let people take tours that are family. So I told him, you're my brother. And so our kids at the time, Shelley and Max, and our wife, my wife Cheryl and I started grilling them before this tour, like, okay, when we're out there at this plant, you're going to call Mr. Campas Uncle Jesse. And that name they still call him that today, and I still call him that today. But anyway, we get out there to the plant, and Jesse says to his boss, says, this is my brother. And his boss looked at me, looked back at Jess, looked at me again, like, okay. So that was the start of a phenomenal decades worth of memories and friendship. Fast forward to Phillip attending East Bakersfield High School. Jesse's in my alma mater, and I don't remember at what point in time it came up that during high school that Phillip was going to be looking for a job. And so it came up that, hey, would I consider, I needed somebody, and would I consider hiring Phillip? And I think I told his dad or Phillip or both, yeah, that's fine, but not going to be easy. I mean, it's hot work in the summertime, cold in the winter. But yeah, you do good as long as you can pay attention. So one of the first days, and you know, and we all know, and you're going to hear this by from some of Phillip's other friends, got those dimples. It's hard to get angry at Phillip when he's smiling at you with that big ear-to-ear grin with those dimples. And so I assigned a task to Phillip to clean some piece of equipment. In tire stores, if you've never been around them, they're dirty. So I said, I want you to clean this thing and get it all presentable. Okay. So I go back to the office, and he comes running back in about 5 minutes. Okay, it's ready to go, Mr. Taylor. Oh, and he always called me Mr. Taylor. Would never call me Dick. I said, okay, let's go look. I went outside. I said, oh, man, this thing looks atrocious. I thought you said you cleaned it. So that back and forth happened about 5 more times. And I could tell Phillip getting increasingly angry at me. I mean, here he was, the high school guy, good looking, quarterback, and he had some dope like me telling him that his job wasn't good enough. So finish that out. At the end of the day, Phillip, for a long time, Phillip was one of our greatest employees ever. And then I still remember the day that he told me that he was considering, and then he went on to Bakersfield College. He decided he was going to join the Marine Corps to follow the steps of his dad. And Phillip went through Marine Corps Recruit Depot in San Diego. By the way, it's super comforting to see a bunch of our fellow Marines here today, and other military as well, and our law enforcement. So I went down to with Phillip, to Phillip's graduation with Jesse and Christine and Adriana to watch Phillip graduate. And that was like the catapult of things. Phillip was already doing great things anyway, but he just did everything 100 miles an hour with his hair on fire. and he was almost non-stoppable. So we finished that, went out to what in the Marine Corps we refer to the fleet. He was assigned several different organizations. One was nuclear weapons security on board Navy, intercontinental ballistic missile submarines. I was up in Washington State. He served a tour in Afghanistan, came back with the he served over there with 2nd Battalion, 7th Marines. Some of his Marines are here with us today. Oh, by the way, and you would appreciate this, last night I was shining my shoes in preparation for today because I still have the same shoes I wore when I was in the Marine Corps. And I told Julio Garcia with the sheriff's office, I said, hey, I think these things are all ready to go. I think even, you think Philip would be proud? He goes, nah, he'd fail you right there. He was a perfectionist. And so came back from Afghanistan. On the way back, they stopped at the island of Iwo Jima. And there's a few Marines here today that were with him on that trip. And he brought us back, me and Jesse back, a container of sand from Iwo Jima, one of the most iconic World War II battles of Marine Corps history. I still have that. And I told him at the time, I said, you and I probably could go to Fort Leavenworth for this, bringing this back. And again, the big grin. It was down at 34th Street Car Wash. We went down there, and that's where he gave it to me. And also brought me back a flag that had been flown over the 2-7 Battalion headquarters and a certificate signed by his CO. I've always had that on my office wall, and when I worked in our private sector and also in my county job, and I have it on our wall at home now. So fast forward to Philip. He went through MCRD San Diego, but he wanted to be a drill instructor, and I know we have at least one of his fellow drill instructors with us here today at Parris Island, South Carolina. All of us in the Marine Corps, and somebody else will probably talk about this as well, we lust to be a drill instructor. So we live vicariously through Philip. So Philip actually was one. And you might have seen before the service started some of his cadence calls. And if you want to get scared out of your wits, listen to Philip greeting recruits when they came off the bus when they first arrived on the island of Parris Island. I mean, even watch it on a video, it's scary. But that's the way he was. He did everything with gusto and with the utmost effort. He finished his time in the Marine Corps. During that time, he married his beautiful wife, Christina. They have 3 great kids. Probably the most agonizing part over the last few years was seeing the agony on their faces and his parents' faces and his sister's face at Kern Medical. And we learned that Philip didn't survive that incident out in Wasco. So Julio Garcia with the Sheriff's Office, my wife Cheryl, and Julio's wife, Olivia Garcia, we run I'm gonna wrap it up here. We run a youth development program here in Kern County called Devil Pups. Teaches good citizenship, patriotism, teamwork, respect for others, doing the right thing. So whenever we have some of our tryouts for this, we introduce ourselves to the parents and the applicants. And so we all introduce ourselves and what we did. Yeah, we're in the Marine Corps, blah, blah, blah. Philip gets up there and does his usual drill instructor thing, and Julio and I looked over each other thinking, that is the guy right there. He is the one to instill these values in these kids. We had him out at the obstacle course at the Sheriff's Range. And I'll conclude my comments with this, and I could go on for hours as I know my other fellow friends could as well. A number of his kids, teenagers that he mentored have now opted. Matter of fact, one of them graduates from MCRD today. Jacob West graduated today. His dad was a BPD officer. Graduated down in San Diego today, and several others have chosen law enforcement as a career. And so we're super grateful for that. But what an honor and what a dang legendary giant of a man Phillip Campas was and is. At this time, Phillip's friends and co-workers will come up to the stage to share their memories of him.
Dick kind of left me hanging there. It's what Marines do to the Army. I used to ask Dick Taylor if he failed the Army test. That's why he was a Marine. Thank you all for being here. Thank you, Mechanics Bank Arena. What an awesome setting for this somber but celebratory event, because that's what this is. This is a celebration. We've all shed tears all week. We'll probably shed some more today, but it's time for us to move forward. It's time for the family to move forward. This is very difficult on everyone. I want to share a couple things with you. I was standing at outside KMC with Kent Sakamoto, and we were talking about the high school football team that he was on, that Phillip was on. And I said, you know, I went to East High as well. I was a Blade, and I was a Viking, and I was a Weekend Vista Warrior. It was really a good 6 years. But I was an East High graduate for 3 years, and Kent was telling me the story about their time on the team. And I said, he was the quarterback. I didn't know. I said, he was the quarterback, wasn't he? He said, yeah, he was. And then he went on to say, we were the champions that year. We played Delano, and we had them swamped 24-0 at halftime. And that was the end of the story. But unfortunately for Kent, there was a Delano graduate there that reminded him that Delano came back and won that game. And it was a sore spot for him. In our academy, we had, when Phillip went through the academy, we had Bakersfield police officers, we had Kern County Sheriff's deputies, and then we had a handful of students who put themselves through, hoping to get a job with an agency. Phillip was one of those students, and you can guess who came out number one in the academy. Of course he did, because that's what he did. He was a leader. He came to work for our organization, and he stood out. Everyone in that organization knew who he was. That's unheard of. We had to close our academy for 2 weeks because of the impact of losing their instructor. He had such an impact on everyone in that organization. I can't tell you how much and what the impact was. It was just bigger than that. Then he was on the honor guard. Everybody you see here today in uniform, they're heroes. God knows it's the most honorable profession on the face of the planet. Most people don't understand what they go through day in and day out, what they have to go through, and they do it. But to be on the honor guard, you have to be extra special. And then to be on the SWAT team, this SWAT team is right down here. You have to be the best of the best. And I promise you, every member of this SWAT team wishes they could be like Philip. We go through this life, and you'll see 1986 with a dash, 2021 by Philip's name. But I promise you, that little dash in between those two numbers, when you get to the pearly gates, that's what God's going to want to talk about, that dash, because that's your life. That's your life, and what did you do? This man did more in 35 years than most of us will ever do in a lifetime. And he did everything exceptionally well. He did it better than anybody else. The day that this happened, the day before this had happened, I ran into Olivia Garcia on the Bluffs. And I asked her where Julio was, and she said, well, he's back at Quantico, trying to be a better Marine. The day that this happened, I told the undersheriff, I said, I need to call Dick Taylor so that he can get a hold of Julio. I did not know the Dick Taylor connection. But this voice in my head said, call Dick Taylor, make sure Julio knows. And that's when I talked to Dick and found out. The last thing I want to leave you with, because I know that we're short of time and we're going to meet that timeline. Mark Warren's out there with a rope and he'll use it. Our life is measured on the impact that we have on other people while we're here. Look at this arena. Just take a look. And to you, Philip, I would say, look what you did, man. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Christian Malero. I'm a sergeant and a SWAT team leader. But most importantly, Phil's brother. So Phil and I would talk every day, had phone conversations every day. I never had a little brother. He bugged me like a little brother. Our conversation started the same every single time. I would say, Philip. He then would reply with, man, don't call me that, man. My mama, my daddy call me that. I thought it was funny every time. He didn't think so. So fast forward to a point where Philip wanted to try out for the dog program. He wanted to be a dog handler. And in our department, if you're a dog handler, you can no longer be on the SWAT team. So for me, I was pretty upset because I was being selfish and I wanted Philip on our SWAT team. So there was already rumors going around that Philip was going to try out. Yet he didn't call me for that. He didn't tell me. So there I am, being the big brother. I'm calling him every day, and he's not answering. He's avoiding my phone call. I would call him, seriously, stalk him like 5-6 times a day. About the third day into this, he finally answers. But this time it was unusual. It was weird because when he answered, we went through the whole Philip call, but I can hear an echo in the background. So I asked Philip, what are you doing? He goes, man, I'm taking a dump. I tell him, after 3 days of avoiding me, you answer while you're taking a dump? He goes, man, I'm so nervous that this is the perfect opportunity for me to answer the phone because I can let everything go. We laugh for a few seconds. I tell him, man, I'll call you back. B, Ralphie, you know exactly what I did. I waited 10 seconds and I FaceTimed him. He answered. The funny part is that he's sitting on the toilet with his shirt off like a little kid. And yes, Mr. Taylor, with the big smile, yes. We continued to have a serious conversation, though, while he was sitting on the toilet, about his passion, about what he wanted to do and become a dog handler. So I told him I was proud of him. I told him I was excited for him, and I told him that I wish he would become the next dog handler. Philip didn't like that. He immediately got mad at me. And he said, man, that's not how this conversation is supposed to go. I said, why not, Phil? Man, I've been so nervous for so long to tell you, and you're going to tell me that you're proud of me? Nah, Chris, I don't like it. Yell at me. I laughed, and I said, no, Philip, I'm proud of you. I'm proud with everything that you're trying to do. And I will do everything in my power to try to get you to every single SWAT call-out or operation that we have as a dog handler if you become a dog handler. Philip told me he loved me for that. I was always proud of Phil and everything he wanted to take on. There were times he would call me at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning when I was asleep. He'd either be mad, crying, laughing, joking, whatever it was. And after I yell at him for calling me and waking me up, he would tell me what he was going through. But I would always answer his phone call, every single time. We shared a lot of things, and one of the things that we shared was a mindset, a strong-willed, no BS type mindset, and that mentality. And one of the persons that we shared videos about and ideas and messages was a person by the name of David Goggins. If you don't know who that is, I suggest you Google him. Earlier this year, I got hit with coronavirus, and it hit me pretty bad. Phil checked on me every single day. He was in disbelief that I had obtained coronavirus. You don't smoke, you don't drink, you don't chew, you work out every day. He was in disbelief. But every day he sent me a video or a message with David Goggins. I know what he was doing. I know exactly what he was doing. And that's the type of person that Philip was, is putting others in front of him and checking on their well-being. That's exactly who he was. He did that every day in front of God, country, and his family. At this moment, I'd like for the SWAT team to come and join me up on stage. So if you guys can please come up, make your way up here. Double time it. I'd like to read to you a final message, one of the final messages that Phil and I shared. Sometimes your best friend just might be the person you don't want to be around at all. It might be the person who's not even trying to challenge you, but does. These are the people most of us try to avoid in life. We don't like those people in our lives who spot check us to make sure we are staying focused and not slipping. It's much easier to have those people in our lives who make us feel great just because we woke up. While those people are very necessary in our lives, it's also very important you have those other people who challenge you at your very core, who don't accept that just because you got your bachelor's degree that you did something amazing. They are challenging you to go way beyond that. It's those people who only give you a few seconds to relish your accomplishment and then are challenging you to achieve the next degree. There's great pressure in having hard chargers in your inner circle. These are the people who let you know when you think you're great, you're truly only good. Some people wonder why they are not getting to that next level in their life. Sometimes all it takes is looking around your circle you run in, and all the answers about where you aren't, where you want to be, lie there. I am always afraid of not being ready when those few savage people in my life unexpectedly check me. Having the feeling of always needing to be ready is an extremely daunting task. On those days you truly want to take off, you know you can't. Rather than seeing those people as pressure, consider them a privilege in your life. To the Campas family, thank you so much for allowing us to have that privilege. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Julio Garcia, Deputy Sheriff, Kern County Sheriff's Office, and I'm also a Staff Sergeant in the United States Marine Corps Reserves. And Taylor, you were right. If Phil was here and he would have inspected us, we would have all failed. Flat out, we wouldn't have passed. Phil was like that. So I started knowing Phil, thanks to the Taylor family when we were working together as Devil Pup instructors back in 2015. Had a chance to meet him and watch him work at Devil Pups. The way he started, the way he said he did introduce himself to us as a drill instructor at Paris Island, I was amazed. I wanted to see him go out there and just like slay these kids, right? And he did. He went out there and just started, hey, you go over there. Now come back here. Now go over there and come back here. Oh, I can't do it. It's his voice. I miss that voice. But he did that so great. And that day, I knew he was going to be somebody in our unit, at least for Devil Pups at that point. We knew he was going to be an asset to our group. We wanted him to come back. We wanted him to come out and mentor these kids. And some of those kids were two of my sons. They're sitting right over there, Marines. One and my nephew, Marines. Right? Phil did that for our family. Right? And a lot other kids that have gotten the chance to meet Phil and see what we were all about got that opportunity and they got that chance. And I missed that. I missed that a bunch. Fast forward a couple of years, Phil became a deputy. I got a little chance to give him back that little DI spirit when he came to the academy, and I was one of his instructors at the range. Oh, I was waiting for him to mess up one time. And he did. He dropped a magazine on the ground, loaded magazine. Ah! I went unglued on him. Got him one time. That was it. He knew next time he wasn't going to drop that magazine. And he was looking at me with that smile that I can't do it. He's got those dimples. It's a killer smile. So after that, you couldn't IT him anymore. Right? You can't be mad at him. So fast forward a couple of years, Phil quickly became a superstar in our department. He got to be a part-time instructor, working alongside with me. Got to be on the honor guard, working alongside with me. Got to be on the SWAT team, working alongside with me. Okay, I've had a chance to be lucky to have a friend like him. Okay, lucky to have seen and have heard all those things that he has done. So I was so honored to be by him all the time. I was super honored when we ended up getting a full-time position at the range, and he ended up applying for it. I was rooting for him. I was like, yeah, you better apply. You're gonna get it, okay? And he did. So the past 7 months, him and I have worked together hand in hand every day. Every day I was with Phil. Yeah, even on Saturdays, even on Sundays, when we weren't at work, he was still calling me. Oh, I would call him. Okay. The week I was gone, him and my other coworkers, Senior Deputy Ballmer and Sakamoto, they all went to a rifle instructor course because we wanted to build some instructors so that we could keep on instructing our department in the tactical rifles. And he wanted to lead that up. He wanted to go to that class. I was so mad because I didn't get to go. They were all getting training orders, and I was like, where's mine? I didn't get to go. But I had gone to my military training. I was in Quantico, Virginia when we heard the tragic news. Okay, it was... So I immediately told my command, I'm leaving, I'm gone. I still had another week of training, and I didn't complete my training because I knew that this was much more important to be here with his family and be here with him. Being with him every day at the range, it was a blessing. I learned a lot from him. I was able to teach him what I knew because basically he was going to be my successor out there. Because I was planning on pulling the pin in a few years. And he wanted to take over. He wanted to do everything. He wanted to teach. He wanted to be the main instructor. And he was getting there. He was preparing. He did everything 100%, 110%. He had no stop button or no pause button. He just kept going and going and going. Me being 50, man, I had to keep up with him. And he would not let me down. He wouldn't let me take a day break. He would just keep going and going and going. Every day, we're gonna PT. No, yes we are. And that big old smile, how could you say no to that smile? You know? So, in closing, I would just like to say something to Phil. Phil, you are like my little brother that I never had. I love you, and I miss your voice. I miss your face. I miss being around you. I just want you to know that we all are going to have your back down here. We will have your back. And you have a new purpose now. Your purpose is with God now. So when you meet him, don't yell at him. Be smooth. But he got you up there for a purpose, and that purpose was to get everybody lined up there, get them all in order. and you know how to do that. I love you, and I miss you. Semper Fidelis, brother.
Good morning. My name is Kent Sakamoto, and I've been a friend of Philip and the Campas family for the last 20 years. I want to thank everyone for attending today's ceremony in honor of our hero, Philip. On behalf of Janae, my family, and I would like to thank Philip's wife, Christina, the family, for allowing us to play such a significant role in honoring and remembering Philip's legacy. When I was asked to speak today, my answer was an immediate yes. But I'll be honest, I was immediately overcome with the nervousness because I know how extremely emotional it will be for me, as I know today will be for almost everyone who knew Philip on a personal level. I also felt honored when asked to speak because that meant Philip's family knew that he and I were close and that I potentially had some level of influence on his life. But the reality is, Philip was a sounding influence on me. Philip and I met in 2001, where we were both attending East Bakersfield High School, where we played football together. As a sophomore in 2002, Philip earned the role as a starting quarterback on the varsity team. There's always been a running joke with Philip and I that I'm going to share that I thought was forever hilarious, but I'm sure Philip grew tired of hearing. For those of you who did not know, in 2002, our football team, we ran the wing T style offense, which is primarily a run-heavy offense. I always used to tell Phillips that we ran the football so much because he could never throw a spiral. I also told Philip how exceptional his footwork was every time he would hand the ball off. As I recited my recycled joke to Philip for the last time the week prior to his passing, his reaction was the same as it had been for the last few years. With Philip wearing his in-frame style Oakleys and those sunglasses were holding on for dear life because his huge grin and dimples were pushing it to the top of his forehead, Philip said, "Bro, do you ever stop talking?" No, buddy, I don't. And we're all here today talking about you. I went to college, Philip finished high school, and then Philip continued on to Bakersfield College to play football. Shortly after, Philip followed in his father's footsteps and joined the Marine Corps. In 2016, Philip and I picked up right where we left off, as Philip had graduated from the Kern County Sheriff's Office Kern Regional Training Academy, where Philip was a class leader and awarded the top overall recruit. I was fortunate to be a part of Philip's academy as recruit training officer, and I got to see firsthand how those years after high school, Philip had grown into a man. Philip was a natural-born leader, displayed grit, intensity, tackled all that was asked of him from us, and he was a recruit and the class leader in the academy, forever exemplifying pride, integrity, and honor. To Philip, there's a lot I never got to tell you because we were always bickering like brothers. But you have no idea how much I enjoy going back and forth with you. Once upon a time, someone in my walk of life called me Fluffy, but I won't name names. You, Phil, also like to remind me each day about how my diet was not fruitful, while you were sitting over there eating chicken and rice. But Brunzel, Volmer, Julio, and I know you're really guilty ice cream pleasure. Doors black and tan. I never got to tell you how proud I was to see you excel within the sheriff's office. I never got to tell you how much I admired you or how much you impressed and pushed me to be better. I think it's apparent how influential you were and how many lives you touched with your work ethic and sometimes hard-headed mentality. I also remember how unwavering you've been in sporting your cowboy attire, or how you made it a point to display your cowboy wallet that looked like a checkbook. I swear you wanted me to say something every time I saw that checkbook sticking up out of your rear pocket, so I kindly obliged. Philip, the week before your passing was special for Eric Volmer and I. We got to spend quality time with you in San Luis for the rifle instructor training, which will forever be cemented in my mind and my heart. Eric and I got to spend time with you doing what we all loved, eating bad foods, drinking beer, and shooting guns, but not in that order. We won't talk about the time shooting competition or the qualification course that week, or how you beat me like a rented mule in both of them, We also won't talk about how you came home from the training and told Christina you outshot me as you're flopping your body down on the couch and telling her that you're a badass. But the truth is, you absolutely were a badass. What you did on July 25th was beyond courageous, and there's not a person in this room that hasn't questioned themselves or their mindset at some point, whether in life or this career. But what you did that day and what you do better than anybody else I know is hold fast. You're unwavering in your mindset, relentless in your effort, and courageous in every way. Philip, I promise to be there for your family in any way. You're my forever hero, and I love you, brother. To Jesse, Christina, Adriana, Christina, Camila, Annalisa, and Eli. Thank you for raising and sharing such a special person. Philip was the person he was because of the morals, values, ethics that you instilled in him from early on, and also as he grew into an adult, friend, father, and a husband. I can't fathom the amount of grief and sorrow you guys are feeling, and I wish I could lift that burden from all of you. I do know that Philip went out on top and spent the final days doing what he loved. Daniel Garcia said it best about Philip's final days. Philip got to spend the weekend at the coast with his family, then spent the following 4 days with Eric and I at training, came home Friday to family, worked at the sheriff's office range, spent Saturday cowboying it up with his horse Colorado, and then spent Sunday forging forward into battle with the SWAT team brothers. I know I speak for a lot of people when I say that we're truly blessed and forever grateful for you guys sharing him with us. I know there are no words that can ease the pain you're going through, but I want you to know your family just grew by thousands. We're all here for you. I want to leave you with a quote from Helen Keller. What we once enjoyed and deeply loved, we can never lose. For all that we love deeply becomes a part of us. In closing, I want to address the law enforcement brothers and sisters and military service personnel, past and present. I want to share a quote with you from Lewis Carroll that speaks to my heart and hopefully speaks to yours as well. This quote is Philip's advice to all of you about being tenacious, pushing forward, and having the mindset in capturing, conquering, and winning each day. Here's what you should know about winning before you chase it. Winning is not loyal to you. It does not care about you, and winning does not care how sore you are. Winning does not care how much sleep you get, and winning doesn't care how hard you work at times. And sometimes the guy next to you doesn't outwork you, and he still wins. It isn't fair. And sometimes there is no justice. But winning requires all of you, and then more, and promises you nothing. It's a mastermind of creating fear and doubt in your mind. It causes setback after setback. So the question about winning is, are you willing to sprint when the distance is unknown? And why chase this thing called winning? Because the only thing that's guaranteed in life, if you don't chase it, is losing. To each of you in attendance, don't overvalue your dream and don't undervalue your team. Lean on each other, let's sprint, let's win, and let's push forward for Phil. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm incredibly honored that Christina asked me to speak today. My name is Seth Caridi, and I first met Phil in January of 2009 at Infantry Squad Leaders course at Camp Pendleton. We all have that one person in life that we click with instantly. Well, Phil was my guy. From that day forward, we were inseparable. The minute I met Phil, it was easy to see why people gravitate towards him. He was a natural leader. Phil was the best Marine I had the pleasure of serving with. Another Marine that served with Phil and I said it perfectly the other day. Some Marines are field Marines and some are garrison Marines. To be both is rare. Well, Phil was both. Phil would always be walking around singing Marine Corps cadence. I would always bust his chops and tell him to stop because he's annoying everyone around. But that was a lie. We all loved hearing it. I was promoted to sergeant on August 2nd, 2009. my company first sergeant asked me if I wanted anyone in particular to promote me. There was only one choice: Phil. Phil pinned me with his own chevrons, and I still have them to this day. Phil and I deployed together on the 31st MU to Japan in January 2010. I was an acting platoon sergeant for most of our final deployment together, and I would always lean on Phil for advice. Trouble with a Marine, Phil would have the remedy. Question about proper ceremonial formations, Phil would know the answer. There are two men in my life that have had the most influence on me: my father and then Phil. He taught me how to be a better leader, a better Marine, a better man. When we returned from our last deployment, me and Phil rented a house off base. Every weekend, we would buy a bottle of Crown and party hard. We would also go out to eat a lot. Now, I'm sure this comes as no surprise to anyone who knows Phil, but he would always recommend Mexican. And I mean always. I'm an Italian guy from New York, and now because of Phil, I love Mexican food too. I remember one weekend, we had our girlfriends at the time, now our wives, come out to visit us and stay at the house. That weekend, we had a ton of memories, a ton of laughs. A lot of Crown and Coke led to something me and Phil created called the 50 cal dance. You can all view it on YouTube. Phil soon became a drill instructor. If there was anyone born to be a drill instructor, it was Phil. Phil would always say to me, "We stay ready so we don't have to get ready." So he didn't have to train too hard to get ready for DI school. When Phil left for DI school, he reminded me of something he would always say: "You on a life plan." When I got to his DI school graduation, seeing Phil wear a campaign cover brought me much joy. I knew how bad he wanted this, how hard he worked for it, and that he was tailor-made for the job. When the graduation was over, Phil handed me a drill instructor challenge coin, another token from Phil that I would cherish for life. I got married exactly 10 years ago today, August 6, 2011. And my wife and I asked Phil to be in our wedding party. I could not have a wedding without Phil being one of my groomsmen. I knew this could be tough for Phil, being a new drill instructor, but in typical Phil fashion, he came through. All of my friends and family approached me and asked, "What's wrong with that guy's voice? Why does he sound like a frog?" Phil was mid-cycle of being a kill hat, so his voice was a little strained. When I graduated from the New York State Police Academy, my wife had been in contact with Phil about coming to my graduation. Her and Phil kept this under wraps. About 20 minutes before the ceremony started, out of nowhere, Phil walks right up to me. I let out a giant yell. My wife took a picture of me and Phil at the moment we saw each other. I had the biggest smile imaginable, and Phil had a pretty big smile too. It's impossible not to smile when you see Phil. Guy has the most infectious smile I've ever seen. He lights up a room with that smile and personality. Phil was able to hang out for a few days in New York. My wife also had a surprise graduation party planned. Another surprise Phil was in on. A lot of drinks later, when the bar was closing, Phil and I thought it would be a good idea for him to march me around the parking lot at 4 a.m. He would yell out cadence while I marched. When Phil left from this trip, he gave me a big hug and said, like he would always say, "You on the life plan, homie." When Phil got out of the Marine Corps, he would talk to me about a career in law enforcement. When he started to apply for jobs, he asked if I would be a reference for him, and I told him absolutely. Shortly thereafter, I received a packet to fill out. I wrote glowingly about Phil and submitted the packet on his behalf. Whoever's assigned background investigator probably read my packet and said, "This guy's full of crap." They probably thought they were hiring Superman. A few months later, the Kern County Sheriff's Office found out that they did, in fact, hire Superman. Phil was elected the class leader and received the overall top cadet award. When I saw that, I just shrugged and said to myself, of course he did. Probably the least shocking thing I ever saw. I'm not telling any of you something you didn't already know, but Phil was clearly a star with the Sheriff's Office. When we would routinely talk, he would tell me how he's chomping at the bit to go on patrol. He would tell me that he's becoming a firearms instructor, that he was an instructor at the academy, and of course he was on the honor guard. Right up Phil's alley. Then I remember him telling me he was trying out for SWAT and then making the team. With Phil being a close quarters battle instructor in the Marines, he found another job that was tailor-made for him. He didn't just join these details, he took ownership of them. He made them better. Anyone who knows Phil would expect nothing less. One of the biggest things I'm going to miss about Phil is our weekly or sometimes monthly phone calls. They would always seem to happen when we were both working. Two cops on patrol, pull over in a vacant parking lot or the side of the road, 3,000 miles apart, just shooting the breeze. We would often talk about the job and the current climate of policing. We would complain about the job because what cop doesn't complain about the job, but simultaneously love it. We'd always talk about family. Phil loved his family deeply. He would tell me how strong his and Eli's relationship had become, or how much his daughters had him wrapped around their fingers. Phil would tell me stories about the hunting trips with his dad and how excited he was to go on the next one. Phil would tell me how important it was to him to have such a supporting wife in Christina, a law enforcement wife that understands about the long hours and random call-outs. Then he would always ask about my family. God forbid I did not answer one of Phil's calls. He would let me have it. Then other times he would imitate being one of my drill instructors. I have about 25 of these voicemails saved, and I would give anything to have one more of these phone calls with Phil. Phil and I would always talk about getting the families together, whether it was in Bakersfield or in New York. One of my biggest regrets would be that I did not make it out here sooner. Well, I'm here now, brother. I'm here for you like you've been there for me so many times. I hate that I'm out here for this reason, but I'm also honored to be here to say goodbye to you. What is a hero? A hero is a man who is scared to run away. Phil sacrificed his life doing what he always does, leading from the front. Not a day will go by that I won't think of you. Not a second will go by that I won't miss you. To the greatest Marine, the greatest warrior, the greatest friend, and the greatest man I will ever know, I'll see you on the other side. You'll always be on the life plan. I love you. Goodbye, brother.
Good morning. My name's Ralph Lomas. Phil and I were first cousins. Phil's mom, my Aunt Christina, and my mom are sisters. I'm a few years older than Phil. And ever since we were younger, I've known Phil, for some reason, always looked up to me like a big brother. So me and Phil grew up together with a rather large family. And we had a lot of family gatherings, usually at my grandma's house. Growing up, there would usually be about 20 to 30 family members at each gathering. But Phil and I would always gravitate to each other during these gatherings, and it would always be me and Phil just hanging out in the corner, cracking jokes about other family members and cousins. So to fast forward a little bit, when Phil was a young adult, he just turned 20 when he joined the Marine Corps and went off to boot camp. I was pretty sad but proud that Phil left because I knew Phil was going to be gone for a few years, and I was lost without my cousin and my hangout partner during these family gatherings. We always had a good connection at these parties. But I knew Phil always wanted to join the Marines just like his dad did. he couldn't wait to enlist so he could make his dad proud and be able to share stories with him. So while Phil was in the Marines, I started my law enforcement career. And I knew Phil would probably be interested in being a deputy because I was one. I ended up being right. As Phil's military days were coming to an end, Phil started to inquire a lot about being a deputy. When Phil was officially out of the Marine Corps, he was really hitting me hard about questions about being a deputy and asking if he should join the academy or go work for a close family friend's company that wanted Phil on board. I told Phil, you should definitely come do a ride-along, man, and see what it's all about. I already knew once Phil did a ride-along, he would have been hooked. So I got him to come out one night, and I gotta say I felt a little pressure because I knew my little cousin was looking up to me, and I wanted to press him. So one night, me and Phil finally got him to do a ride-along. I had to give him the whole spiel. If anything goes wrong, you gotta stay in the car. Don't get involved. Until everything was code 4, meaning safe. I told him he couldn't get involved with anything unless I was in dying need. Phil's response was, man, if someone's out there whooping your ass, I'm gonna get involved. I'm gonna handle business for you. In my mind, I already knew Phil wasn't gonna just sit in the car if something went wrong. So I worked the swing shift. I worked about 2,300 hours, 11 o'clock. I remember conducting a traffic stop. I was on Haley Street and Pearl Street. I get out of my car, Phil exits the passenger seat. We both walk to the engine block of the car, and the vehicle takes off. I yell out, Phil, we got one. Get back in. We both jump back in the car, we go in pursuit. The car goes a couple blocks, stops. 2 guys jump out. I jump out after the suspect, the driver, and do what I normally do, catch him. A couple blocks away. So I'm in the middle of the street. Mind you, it's not the best area to be in at 11 o'clock, midnight by now. Taking this guy into custody. I remember putting handcuffs on this dude in the middle of the street. And I look up, and there's Phil 5 feet away from me, smiling. It's like, man, I thought I told you to stay in the car. Needless to say, after that night, Phil made up his mind about being a cop. I remember transporting that guy to the jail, and I asked Phil, what were we gonna do, man, if I was in trouble? It's like, I don't know. All I have is this flashlight. You told me to bring it from home, but I was gonna flashlight the shit out of somebody. We just laughed all the way to the jail. I knew once Phil got hired on the department, Phil was going to shine bright with the department. You know, he did a lot of different interests for this department, and I was also was number 1 on everybody's list as far as the assignment he wanted to go to, as far as the gang unit, K9. And then the time came, try out for the SWAT team, came out number 1 on that. Of course, when Phil comes out to the tryouts, he kills it, comes out number 1. With me being on the team already, I was proud of him. I'm proud to be able to call him my cousin and family. A lot of people from work knew Phil as this intimidating deputy who would just yell and scream at cadets. And don't get me wrong, Phil was a beast when it came to training. But I knew Phil as this guy who was a warrior, but at the same time had the biggest heart. Phil was never ashamed to show his true feelings and emotions. I've seen Phil tear up. I've seen Phil tear up plenty of times when he's speaking so passionate about his topics that he was crying about. But I knew Phil was a very passionate man, and seeing the guys seeing Phil cry, I kind of, at first I was like, man, it's my cousin, man. He's over here crying, making me look bad. It's like, man up, man, man up. But I already knew the guys didn't think anything less than Phil. They already knew he was passionate about what he was talking about. He was one of the toughest guys out there. Phil knew I had a lot of love for him. I knew he had a lot of love for me as well. Phil and I were more like brothers than just cousins. Phil asked me to be his first-born daughter, Camilla's godfather. And Phil would always tell me his second daughter, Annalisa, was a little jealous of that. So he'd always tell Annalisa that I'm her Nino too. Family was a big part of Phil's life. Family was the most important thing to Phil, and I admire that about him. Every time I walked into a house, and his family and his girls were there, he would yell at the girls and say, hey, go give your Nino a hug. They would have to stop whatever they're doing and come give me a hug and then go back to play. I know I said this before, but Phil has always looked up to me while growing up. But at some point in our lives, I was the one looking up to Phil. Phil taught me a lot. Sorry. Phil was my rock. He was my confidence booster on the SWAT team. Everything seemed to come so easy to Phil as far as the tactics. That was his world, and he was good at it. I'm blessed to having my SWAT brothers at every call out and every training, but there's something different about having true blood on the team, someone who I grew up with like a brother, being there with me at the craziest times. I just felt more comfortable with him being there, knowing that we had each other's back. Not too long ago, myself, Phil, and Brandon Garrity were able to attend San Bernardino SWAT school. I believe some of the guys are still here today. But Phil always told me that was one of the best trainings he's ever been through while being a cop. And during those three weeks of intense training, we all got pretty banged up. But just Phil telling me every day that this is one of the best trainings, I had to take it to heart that after all the training he's been through, I believed him. Phil said he would do it all over again for that San Bernardino SWAT school until gas day. It was between myself, Phil, and Brandon Garrity. We always said that was the worst day of our lives. And it was, until a couple weeks ago on July 25th. Now I have a worse day of my life. Things aren't ever going to be the same without Phil here. Not only am I not going to have Phil to joke around with in the future SWAT callouts and future training, I'm not going to have him at the family gathering, being able to crack jokes anymore. It's going to be hard for me, but I definitely know it's going to be hard for Christina, his wife, Annalisa, Camilla's daughters, Eli, his son, my Aunt Christina, Uncle Jesse, and his sister Adriana. All I can do is promise to be there around the family a lot more like Phil was. But there's no replacing Phillip Campas. Phil was a true man's man. Phil could do anything from hunting, fishing, barbecuing, building furniture from scratch, and working on cars. Phil was definitely an inspiration to me and will always remain an inspiration to me as the days pass. As I stand here today, I never thought I would have to speak at my little cousin's funeral ceremony. It hurts. gonna miss you, Phil, so much. I'm not gonna have my cousin there, my brother, my best friend. We're all gonna miss you. We love you. Rest in heaven, cousin.
Good morning. My name's Commander Juan Trevino. I had the distinct honor of calling Phillip Campas my friend. Our relationship skyrocketed almost as soon as we met. I don't know what it was. If you guys have heard everybody mention his smile, he had a magnetic personality, and it drew me to him. I shared some stories with the family about our relationship. I'm going to keep those with the family. During the time that I knew Phil, he would call me regularly. It seemed like it was daily. I'm pretty certain my lovely wife was pretty jealous of Phil. He would call me for anything. The one thing I always asked him, practically begged him to do, was to call me by my name. Philip refused to call me by my name. It was always Sir or Sarge. He made it a point to let me know that once I promoted to lieutenant, he says, "You don't look like a lieutenant, so I'm not going to call you that. I'm going to call you Sir." I asked him what a lieutenant looks like. He says, "Anything but you." Well played. As our relationship grew, he got assigned to certain assignments that I was fortunate enough to oversee. Phil ended up at the range. He had such a passion for training. He would call me constantly complaining about a lot of people showing up for training and training for time and not for a standard. So I asked him what he's going to do about it. He goes, "Well, cut me loose and I'll fix it." I had no doubt. So I took the leash off of him, and he was ready to go conquer the world. As you've heard earlier, Phil spent the week down at the coast doing some rifle training. And prior to going to that training, Phil would always call me about tactics, training, stuff that he wanted me to send him to. Since I'm the commander, he said I had the credit card to send him. And he was always talking about 2 Lamb from Ronin Tactics. And let me back up a little bit. I took my wife to Santa Barbara for her birthday. And as we were leaving the parking lot one day of their hotel, 2 Lamb is about 2 cars over from me. So I kind of fan crushed on him a little bit, but I didn't have the nerve to go up to him and say anything, because what does he care about some guy from Kern County Sheriff's Office? So I get in the car and I call Phil. "Hey, Phil, 2 Lamb is 2 cars over from me." He goes, "Did you go talk to him?" "No." "Man, you changed," and he would hang up. So we talked about that for a while, and I'm sorry. Talking to Christina, I told her one of the regrets that I have is that I never told Phil that I loved him. And she looked at me and she said, "You never had to say it." He knew. Christina, thank you for allowing me to be a part of your life. Jesse, Christine, thank you for allowing me to be a part of this. I will be here for you guys at any time. Phil, I know you never got to hear the words, but I love you, and I'll see you soon.
I feel like God's telling me to let everybody know here that it's okay and that He's here right now. And He's with all of us. That is no lie. I didn't know Him. And I may not know all of you, but God does. And for whatever reasons, God chose me to be here right now to sing you this song. And I pray that right now, Lord, that you use me as your vessel to do your work. And I encourage everyone here to do the same. It's perfect silence that God left down of the weather. Got the whole crew here, sing some of them forever. It's one of those that ever forget it, better stop and take it in kind of scenes, where everything's just right, yeah, except for one thing. You should be here, standing with your arm around me, cutting up, cracking a cold beer, saying cheers. Hey, young, sure been a good years. One of those moments has got your name written all over it. You know that if I had just one wish, it'd be that you didn't have to miss this. You should be here. taking way too many pictures on your phone, showing them all to everybody that you know back home, and even some you don't. Yeah, they say now you're in a better place. I would be too if I could see your face. You should be here, standing with your arm around me here, cutting up, cracking a cold beer, say cheers. Young, it's sure been a good years. One of those moments that's got your name written all over it. You know that if I had just one wish, it'd be that you didn't have to miss this. And now you should be here, you'd be loving it, you'd be freaking out. What's going on, yeah, you know about what's going on right here, right now. I wish somehow you could be here. No, you should be here. This is one of those moments, it's got your name written all over it. And you know that if I had just one wish, it'd be that you didn't have to miss this. You should be here. No, you should be here.
All glory to God. Amen.
Alpha 20, unit with campus, control. This is the final call for Deputy Phillip Campas, Alpha 20. Deputy Campas was fatally shot on July 25th, 2021, while answering the call for duty. He gave of himself while serving his community with courage and valor. The men and women of the Kern County Sheriff's Office are forever grateful and proud to have served with Deputy Campas and will never forget his ultimate sacrifice. All units break for a moment of silence. Deputy Phillip Campas, may you rest in peace, knowing that your strength and legacy live on in your wife and family, and your honor will continue on with all of us. Alpha 20, you are clear to end of watch. Thank you for your service. Rest easy, sir. We have the watch from here. Alpha 20 is end of watch for the final time. Kern County Sheriff's Office call sign Alpha 20 and badge 1392 is hereby retired. Control and clear.
Christina asked that I read a letter she wrote. These are Christina's words. First and foremost, I would like to extend my utmost gratitude to my family and friends who have tirelessly comforted and consoled me and my kids and helped us get through this unbearable time. To the Kern County Sheriff's Office, thank you for all your support, and please know that when I refer to the word family, that it will forevermore include all of you. To the Marines who served along my husband, thank you for being by my side today. It takes a special type of human being to take on the duty of protecting and serving in times of as dangerous as ours. But Philip did so with pride and dignity as a U.S. Marine and as a Kern County Sheriff. It also takes a special community to recognize the courage and commitment of a fallen officer. With that said, I would like to thank Kern County for showering us with their generosity and support. To the entire nation, the outpour of anonymous donations, heartfelt cards and flowers, and prayer vigils held in Philip's honor have not gone unnoticed. I thank you all from the bottom of my heart. It's touching and comforting to hear and read all the stories and posts shared of the lives Philip touched and the legacy he has left. And I take solace in knowing his memory will live on in all of us. To most of you, he was Philip or Deputy Campas. But at home, he was my children's daddy and my husband. There aren't words to express how much I love this man and how proud I am of the man he was and the hero he will always be. I truly appreciate everyone honoring Philip in a manner he so greatly deserves, and I speak on behalf of myself and my family when I say we will forever be grateful. In closing, I ask you to remember to honor all of the brave men and women who choose every day to risk their lives to protect ours. Like Philip, they are our heroes.
Let us pray. Lord God of mercy, we give you praise and thanksgiving. We pray, O Lord, that you will hear the pleadings of your people as we go forth, taking our brother Philip to his final place of rest. Lord, we thank you for those who shared today. We thank you for the memories that we take and hold in our hearts. Father, we join together in prayer and support for the Campas family. May your spirit of comfort and consolation rest upon them. Lord, we pray for this community, this state, for this great nation. We pray for our leaders, remembering that unless the Lord builds the house, the builders labor in vain. And Father, we give you thanks for the men and women who selflessly continue to serve and to protect our communities. We ask also for a special blessing upon our military, our law enforcement personnel, and all public servants. May your mantle of mercy and protection cover them always. And may the grace of our Lord Jesus Christ and the love of God and the fellowship of the Holy Spirit be with us all, now and forevermore. Amen.
At this time, we will dismiss Philip's family and law enforcement personnel who will be participating in the processional to the private gravesite services. We ask that all others in attendance please remain seated until these people have left the arena. As a reminder, the processional is only for law enforcement personnel. And I want to personally thank the Campas family for allowing me to be a part of honoring our friend, Philip. We appreciate those that came today and those that are watching online. And in closing, and if you'll please wait until before you leave the arena, the law enforcement personnel need to leave first, please. So we owe it to Philip to be the absolute best we can in our own lives on this earth. The best parent, the best son or daughter, the best aunt or uncle, the best citizen, the best neighbor, the best coworker, the best American.
Funeral service for Kern County Sheriff's Deputy Phillip Campas. We are waiting now to take a look at the procession that will be taking Deputy Campas to the National Cemetery. Over the last hour and a half, we have heard from family, friends, former colleagues of Deputy Campas, or Phil, as some of those folks referred to him. He was described as a natural leader, a passionate man, and a family man. His cousins saying that family mattered more to Phil than anything else. For the first time, we were also hearing the words of Deputy Phillip Campas's wife. She did not speak at the funeral, but someone read a message on her behalf. She described her husband as a hero. Christina thanked KCSO, thanked the Marines who served alongside her husband, as well as Kern County. You know, over the last 10 days, we have seen an outpouring of support from this community. She also expressed her thanks to people across the nation who have held prayer vigils, sent cards, and sent donations for her family. Now, as we await the start of the procession, we want to send things out to Mike Hart, who was just inside Mechanics Bank Arena. And Mike, we heard some incredibly touching tributes.
Yeah, that's right, Brenna. It was emotional at times. It was there was humor at times, some humor from members of his Marine Corps family that was very colorful, but all filled with love and respect, truly showing the spirit and character of this young man, father, Marine, deputy with the Kern County Sheriff's Department, and it was very powerful at times. Now, as Brenna mentioned, we are sitting here waiting for the procession to leave, and if you look down Truxton right now, you can see the cars. We are at Truxton and Q Street, where this procession is going to begin. It is 3 lanes wide, and that row, those rows of vehicles you see right there from many, many different agencies, stretches all the way back to L Street, down by Superior Court. That's how many are here. We are waiting for the procession with the family and close friends to come up from behind the arena to lead this procession down Truxton. I would like to point out, if we could, real quick, let's just swing around this way and look eastbound on Truxton. We're outside the library, of course. If you look up, this is where the Bakersfield City and County Fire Departments have created an arch with a giant American flag that the vehicles and the body of Deputy Phillip Campas will go underneath on their way out to the Bakersfield National Cemetery. And I don't know, Tark, if you can see just right down there, we've already got people that are set up with flags. I see the Marine Corps flag, the American flag, the Back the Blue flag, all setting up down there. We have said, and the family has requested, that the general public do not take part in the procession out to the Bakersfield National Cemetery due to safety concerns and whatnot. But as you can see, we are expecting to see a number of people that will be set up along the route as they head out towards the Bakersfield National Cemetery. Now, coming back around here as we wait for the procession to come out here on Truxton as people begin to leave the arena, I wanted to touch on several of the speakers that Brenna had mentioned. I'm going to go ahead and step out of the shot here. As you can see, people beginning to come out and officers now headed for their vehicles. Dick Taylor starting things off. Dick Taylor, friends with Philip's father, longtime friends, Marines, going way back. In fact, Philip his first job was for Dick Taylor at his place, Taylor Tires. And the one word that really stuck out when Dick Taylor was talking about Phillip Campas was perfection. This was a young man who was obsessed with perfection. Sheriff Youngblood taking the podium, and one of the things that really stood out in his remarks was when he said, quote, "Our life is measured on an impact we have on other people. Just look around the arena." A powerful moment there. Then there was the SWAT team leader, Christian Molero, calling Phillip a hard charger. And he described that as someone who reaches a goal and immediately looks for the next challenge. Following him was Staff Sergeant Julio Garcia with the U.S. Marine Corps Reserves and the Sheriff's Department, who had served shoulder to shoulder with Phillip Campas as they were devil pup instructors. He called him the superstar of the department, a man who did everything from the honor guard to the SWAT team, and he did everything at 110%. And one thing that really caught my attention is when he said Phillip Campas had no pause button. He never let me down. With the Kern County Sheriff's Department, Ken Sakamoto then stood up. He made several remarks, including saying how truly that he was talking to the family at the time, telling them, you know, we are truly blessed for you sharing Phillip with us. Followed by U.S. Marine Corps Seth Carty, a Marine who Phillip Campas served with. You know, he mentioned the story about when Phillip asked him to be a reference for him when he was applying for the Kern County Sheriff's Department and a job in law enforcement. And he said they thought that they were hiring Superman. And he mentioned Kern County Sheriff's Department found out they did. There were some emotional remarks by Ralph Lomas, who is a family member of a cousin of Phillip Campas, also serving in the Sheriff's Department. And then it was wrapped up by Juan Trevino, who told his wife Christina, that he never told Phil that he loved him, and she told him back he knew. So those are just some of the remarks by the people who spoke today for Phillip Campas. We are awaiting the start of the procession that will head down Truxton Avenue. It will leave this area. We are looking back to the west as the vehicles will be headed east, right past our position out in front of the Kern County Library. So we'll keep this shot up here for you, and we will continue to provide more information as we receive it. But once again, we do need to stress that they ask the public, if you were hoping to try and come out and be part of this procession, they're asking that you don't, for safety reasons primarily, and because we're talking about several hundred vehicles that will be taking part in this just from his law enforcement family. Reporting live out here. We'll come back out in just a little bit. Mike Hart, 23 ABC. Back to you, Brenna.
Thanks, Mike. And Sheriff Donnie Youngblood spoke about the impact that Deputy Phillip Campas had on the academy and others that he came in contact with. We have that sound for you in a moment. We should be able to get it to you, obviously. Mike kind of alluded to that to what the sheriff mentioned in his speech. Deputy Campas was an instructor at the academy, meaning that he helped to train the new KCSO deputies. Also, we heard from a lot of people who have known Deputy Campas his entire life, someone who not only was we've got that tape ready for you. Let's go straight to that.
We had to close our academy for 2 weeks because of the impact of losing their instructor. He had such an impact on everyone in that organization. I can't tell you how much and what the impact was. It was just bigger than that.
And we know that 23 deputies have since gone on leave since the death of Phillip Campas, his passing obviously being felt across the department.
Phil's always looked up to me while growing up, but at some point in our lives, I was the one looking up to Phil. Phil taught me a lot. Sorry. Phil was my rock.
And that was Deputy Phillip Campas's cousin heading back outside now, live outside of Mechanics Bank Arena. We are waiting for the procession to start. As noted, it is only for family and law enforcement. They'll be heading to the National Cemetery for a private burial. And KCSO is asking for your cooperation in order to make sure that this goes smoothly. So the route that it will be taking, it will head east on Truxton Avenue, down Q Street, continuing east on Truxton, then heading south on Union Avenue, merging onto Highway 58. East towards Mojave, and then exit onto Highway 223 west towards Arvin. Again, that service at the National Cemetery is private. It's for family only. We heard at the very end of the ceremony that they were letting the family out first, and as well law enforcement personnel. So you can see there are a few cars driving past, the law enforcement vehicles lined up, officers we saw earlier getting into their vehicles, and now we're just waiting to see when this is all going to get underway. Now we're going to end our live coverage on TV. We will continue our coverage on our streaming platforms, on our website, our social media pages, as we will continue to follow this procession. If you've been watching our coverage throughout the morning, thank you so much for joining us.